Good day, everybody. Sorry for interrupting you. This is the second part of our conference. So, if you want, you can take your seat. If you want, you can walk around. Feel free. And we have some changes in our program. Some minor changes, don't be afraid. Changing only the cue how speakers are coming to talk, so don't be afraid. Wait until 6:30, until the end, and everything will be okay. So let me represent to you one of the famous, institute establisher, or one of the famous founders institute is Hippocrates Health Institute, and Dr. Brian Clement likes to joke. I really liked his joke yesterday, and it sounds something like that he was a pioneer in the field of obesity, and can you imagine, he was fat even before many Americans were fat. Did you catch the idea? He was fat even before the Americans became fat. Can you imagine? This is what the Hippocrates Institute, Health Institute is doing with human. Brian.
How's everyone doing? Now, I want to know what you ate at lunch. I'm going to go down row by row and ask what you ate. Did you all eat healthy diet? I'm going to check your breaths now. I'm going to smell your breath and see if that's true. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the subject today and why it is so incredibly important that the world of competent and honest medical doctors and researchers are moving back to lifestyle, which was the original medicine not many years ago. When I first shifted from a typical Western diet, like a Lithuanian diet, but probably worse, to a healthy plant-based diet, the only one that supported me was my grandmother. Because my grandmother came over after everyone left the room in horror and thought that I had completely lost my mind, and she said, "I guess I ate the way you're eating now." And I said, "Grandma, what do you mean?" She said, "Oh, in our house, we would only eat meat twice a month to show off to the neighbors." That was it. And she said, "I know you're going to be okay because I'm 85 years old and I didn't die from eating healthy diets." Now think of how strange it is that we've got to re-educate the public, and even stranger, re-educate healthcare professionals of how important what you eat is. When I began lecturing a long time ago, my medical mentor, Dr. Peer from Harvard, 1928, said to me, "When they start barking at you at medical conferences, pull out of your pocket something that looks like a bottle of poison and ask them if they would ingest it to see if what you swallow has anything to do with your health." And slowly but surely, each and every one of us have been slowly poisoning ourselves. And so let's look at some of the things that we've developed and understood. Nutritional and lifestyle research is emerging as a serious sector of healthcare internationally. As with all science outcomes, they may reveal different results. For this reason, meta-studies are valuable. They highlight the commonalities of empirical data. So what I learned, I get up in the morning reading research, and I go to bed reading research, and my wife and I are a little strange. You know, we kiss when we get to the amoeba section. That's it. And what I started to recognize is that most research is funded by people with a special interest. with a vested interest. Very rarely do you have somebody come and give money to a research scientist and say, find what helps humanity. What they do is they come with a check in one hand and what the result should be in the other hand. And then the field of research science is entrapped in a cyclical cycle of deception for the people. So when you have 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 studies and you analyze those studies and there's commonalities or things that you see in every study, that's what we know to be true. So I spent a lot of time reading meta-analysis. There are ever-accumulating results with impressive trends that lead serious lifestyle advocates to be scientifically optimistic for the future of this emerging science, where we're standing in the epicenter of the future of medicine. Now, my question is not whether or not this university and Lithuanians have the ability to lead the world, and I mean lead the world in the future of medicine. We only have one hurdle. It's called government. And thank God you have big advocates in your government now that are lifestyle medical doctors. So let's start with that. Hippocrates Health Institute welcomes scrutiny of our data and is currently establishing a data bank, which we intend to use for the advancement of these essential findings. Now, what I decided years ago, because we began a long time before other people. We began when I was a little boy. I didn't have a job at the Institute then, in the 1950s, 1956. And we avoided doing anything that looked scientific because we've been under attack since 1956. But what we've done for the last 15 years is we invite universities, we invite serious researchers that want to look at data that now is 62 years old, and case study after case study to come to the birthplace of lifestyle medicine and review what we have found, what we know to be true, that we just don't publish. So from 1956 now till 2018, we have worked and conducted clinical research on more than 600,000 people. So that's how many people have been through the program. Now it's about 600,004. Females number 60%. That proves to you that women are smarter. No question about it. Women are smarter. 40% male. 45% North Americans. And per capita, we get more Canadians. Do you know why? Canadians are a little bit European. A little bit European. So they haven't lost their way completely. And the rest are Americans. 29% Europeans, 15% South Americans, 8% Asians, and 3% Africans. So this is general trends over decades. Our in-house residents generally attend in the conquest of disease. So more than half the people that came to us have been told by doctor or many doctors that they're very sick and there's nothing more that can be done. And we're probably best known for cancer, because that's one that finally people are realizing medicine doesn't have a great answer for most of them. And so after they've been through the treatments quite often, after they've had their immune systems devastated by nuclear medicine, they show up with stage 4 advanced cancer. And we'll show some case studies as we go. Cancer is 46%, cardiovascular disease 17%, type 2 diabetes 15%. Autoimmune disease, which I don't believe is a disease, by the way. I think that's a convenient term that's all of the disorders that they don't know what to do with. So they have in that arthritis, they have in lupus, they have a wide variety of so-called disorders that they really don't know what they come from. So they say, your immune system's attacking you. And I don't completely concur with that, to be candid with you. Viral disorders, 4%, multiple sclerosis, 3%, Parkinson's, 2%, and ALS, 2%. Now, what's frightening to me is the last three, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and Lou Gehrig's, ALS, were so small in the population till 10 years ago, they were negligible. I would not even have put them on this list a decade ago. But they're growing, skyrocketing. There's no disease that I haven't seen skyrocket. And the saddest part for my team and I is it used to be easy when I began my work 47 years ago, because everyone that was sick was my age and older. So we've had a life. But I'm sitting at my office, as I'll be on Monday, because I know what my appointments are, with a family with a 12-year-old child with brain cancer. I did not see that when I began my work. And I don't sit and give them a speech. As a father and a grandfather, I hug them, and I console them, and I tell them, let's do everything we can to help you. Our objective with our lifestyle medicine program is to educate and support individuals to take responsibility for their life and improve all areas concerning health. Yes, food is the central part of it, but we don't stop at food. Because you could be eating a perfectly good organic diet, and if you don't exercise, you will not be healthy. If your attitude's not good, I don't care if you exercise and you eat perfectly good food. It's as important. And I want to throw in something that Dr. Kelly said to you today that I completely agree with, that you've got to have, I don't know what you've got to have, but I believe, and I've seen it work, that if you have a spiritual, something a higher support, it really is extremely helpful in preventing disease and recovering from disease. Our medical team conducts thorough blood analysis at the beginning and end of each person's stay. Now at Hippocrates, we call it the Life Transformation Program. And back about 31 years ago, I realized that if you don't have people there for 3 weeks, they don't change. Now, at first, I was so young and arrogant, I thought I came up with that concept. And then every psychologist and psychiatrist I told that to, they laughed at me and said, haven't you ever heard that it takes 21 days to change a habit? Well, our medical team will also say it takes 21 days to really get an evaluation on blood chemistry. And I've seen that over decades, over the last 31 years. The shifts between 14 and 15 days in blood profile and 21 days are astronomical. Something really psychological and physiological and biochemical and anatomical happens in that third week. We used to have a 2-week program because it was better economically for us. But the fact was, I always felt I was putting my 12-year-old children on the street. So 21 days has been our standard now for over 3 decades. Our graduates, we don't consider them patients. We consider everyone that comes to us guest. And we have every week on Friday a formal graduation where we honor them. Because it takes a lot of courage to radically change your lifestyle. And they should be honored for that. And then systematically and periodically send back labs which are accrued and used for ongoing consultations. So we've been collecting data now since I became the director in 1980, because we tell all the guests for free, F-R-E-E, for the rest of your life, we'll counsel you. But to counsel you, you have to send back blood tests. So we have one when they come in, one when they leave, and then the smart ones that do this, thank God not all of them do it, or I'd never sleep, but the smart ones that do it, we now have year after year after year, and sometimes I pull their file out and it weighs 3 kilos. So we'll talk more about that as we go. The worldwide epidemic of type 2 diabetic. What really is interesting, one of my other hobbies is I like to read old science. So I go into libraries, not as much now, I don't have the time as I used to, but I actually look at 100 years ago. Do you realize it was not found, a disease they called type 2 diabetes 100 years ago? It was non-existent. And today it's one of the fastest growing diseases in the history of humanity. It's skyrocketing. And look at where in the world we're getting this. And we used to think, by the way, it was a total sugar problem. But notice that over 85% of the people that contract type 2 diabetes are overweight, obese, or morbidly obese. And we figured this out, that one of the most important fuels for your cell is glucose, sugar. Now, if you eat animal fat, and that means eggs, and that means fish, and that means chicken, and that means milk, and that means cheese, and that means yogurt, it smothers and surrounds the cell. So when the sugar, the glucose, tries to go in, it cannot. It remains in the bloodstream, and we call that blood sugar. So it's given the proper name, the appropriate name. But look at Western Pacific. They don't eat tons and tons of meat, but what they eat, tons and tons of coconut oil. And a big fad now in the health food industry is eat coconut oil. It's saturated fat. No, it's not as bad as pork fat, not as bad as all these other fats, but the truth of the matter is, it's a very thick molecular structure. Africa is the lowest. And we go to South and Central America, Middle East, North America, Europe, East Asia, and then Western Pacific. Here's the kind of thing we see. Not every case, every time, but this is so common. Every week or every other week we have a story like Jack's. So he lost 60 pounds. In 3 days he was off insulin he had been on for years, and his stomach medicine was completely gone. High blood pressure medicine completely gone. Now that happens matter of fact, that happened within 15 days for Jack. 3 days he was off some of the others. Another fella, diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in '99, came to us sick as a dog, dying, going blind, everything that a diabetic does, severe chest pains, shortness of breath, dizziness, partial paralysis in facial muscles, extreme tingling in arms and legs, B12 deficiency we found. December, lost 25 pounds, eliminated prescription medicine, normalized blood pressure and blood sugar. Now think of this. Now these are not stories that are made up. If you talk to any of these doctors that are here with us, they will tell you the exact same stories. We could come the next time here for 5 days and just give you study after case after case after case. And we wouldn't stop for 5 days. That's how many cases we have. This was a really interesting case. So from 1988 to 2014, I had 5 heart attacks. I won't tell you who he was, but our he wasn't the president, but he was a man next to the president. He was his personal assistant. This guy had one of the most stressful jobs on the planet Earth. So he goes to the best doctors. He had 2 triple bypass, stents, pacemaker, angiogram diagnosed. All arteries were blocked. Heart transplants recommended. So his neighbor says to him, "Oh, you're going to get a heart transplant soon. Why don't you go to Hippocrates and rest?" He didn't know what Hippocrates was. All this man ever did is eat meat like I used to and dairy food. I never ate a vegetable. I didn't know what a fruit was. His whole diet, like my old diet, was meat and dairy, meat and dairy. Comes to us, just thinks he's taking a holiday, completely shocked because we're feeding him healthy food he's not used to. Blood pressure went from an average 136/79 to 96/68 within the program. September 15th, transplant group follow-up, removed from the transplant list. By the way, that happened to be 3 years ago. I have him come and speak to the doctors that come for training at Hippocrates periodically. He just gets in his car and drives 4 hours and comes and speaks to them. This is a funny story. This is an Italian. How many of you know how Italians love food? You all know how Italians love food, and Italian Americans love food even more than Italians love food. So his best friend comes to Hippocrates and heals himself. He says, "You go to Hippocrates." Oh, he made an excuse up. "I don't want to go to Hippocrates. I don't want to." So this friend intimidated him by saying, "I'm going to pay for you and your family to go to Hippocrates." And as soon as he did that, he said, "Okay, I'll go." The guy went completely bonkers. So blood pressure normalized and lost 50 pounds in 108 days. Cholesterol dropped 180 points in 30 days. You know what happened? He went back and completely changed his medical practice. He sat and told all of his patients they have to eat healthy food. You know what happened? 60% of his patients abandoned him. They kept saying, "All I want is a pill." He said, "I'm not going to give you a pill." He said, "You have to find another doctor." And I said, "Don't worry. Now he has double the people in his practice. People are waiting outside to see him because he's honest. He's telling people, there's cases where you need medicine. There's cases where you need mainstream. But let's try to do something before you go to that. A recent study comparing several dozen pancreatic cancer outcomes was published. Long-term survival rates were evaluated, compared 1988 to 96 and 2001 to 2009. It was determined that there was a slight extension of life relating to diagnostic tools that are currently being employed. So the latest study actually shows that the only thing that we've ever done with pancreatic cancer in mainstream medicine is if you catch it soon enough, you may live a little longer, a month or 2 months or 3 months. So what this is actually showing us, as I've seen, is that all the mainstream treatments for pancreatic cancer pretty much are failing us at this point. That's why it's difficult. Prostate cancer, here's Dean Ornish, one of the top lifestyle medicine doctors. He was a guy that did what I call easy softball work in the beginning. He said, let's look at heart disease, let's look at diabetes, and was showing that over 90% of the participants were recovering just by eating healthy diets and relaxing, calming their minds, praying. So he goes to prostate cancer. Takes 100 subjects, were divided into 2 groups. The first maintained their Western diet and did not adhere to any lifestyle improvements. The second consumed pure plant-based diets and 3 times a week for 30 minutes adhered to relaxation and yoga techniques. After 1 year, the group were evaluated. The first showed no improvements, as anticipated. Tumors grew and cancers advanced. Lifestyle adherence displayed a trend in reducing of tumors and remission of the disease. This is what I've seen for my whole life. Now look at this. This is a scary one. This is what we are doing with colorectal cancer. Matter of fact, our founder, the Lithuanian founder, Anne Wigmore, in 1952 was told by Harvard medical doctors, you're going to die in 3 months, 90 days. You have advanced colon cancer, from the top doctors in America. She went home and employed the Lithuanian medicine from 100 years ago. Herbal medicine, food, and she reversed it. And in 1956 opened the doors of Hippocrates. Now who has the least? Western Africa. Who has the most? Who eats the most meat? So what this actually shows us, the more meat you eat, the more dairy you eat, the more colon cancer you're going to get. Now, if that doesn't prove it to you, that scale, that's like an artist rendition to make a point. But this is actually data and statistics. The more meat and more dairy, the more you're going to have colon cancer. And by the way, the kind of meats that you like here are the worst. Pork, meat on your sandwiches, cured meats. With the cured meats, you get more colon cancer. All my old favorite things. So here's a guy diagnosed with liver cancer, stage 4, by Penn Medicine, University of Pennsylvania. February 2016, diagnosed in total remission, free of all cancers. By the way, he has good insurance, friend of Loretta sitting here. Client, matter of fact, Loretta helped to bring about his stage 4 recovery from liver cancer. And you know, when people don't get well from these things, I get upset because I'm so used to seeing people get well from these things. And maybe you can say that's not evidence, but look at this guy. It's plenty of evidence. Thyroid cancer statistics. By the way, your country has a lot higher thyroid cancer than other countries. You know why? You were close to Chernobyl. So when Chernobyl happened, what we now know is that 200 miles in every direction from the center of Chernobyl, 100% of the young people below 18 ended up with thyroid cancer. Now, when the wind blew, some of it came over here to the Baltic countries. And so your level, especially near the coast, of thyroid cancer is higher than it is in other. But you know where you're getting thyroid cancer from now? Not only the lack of selenium and iodine in the soil worldwide, but the use of cell phones, the use of routers inside of your home. Laptop computers, cell towers. Look at the work of my good friend, Dr. Devra, D-E-V-R-A Davis, who was Bill Clinton's top scientist for 8 years. Our country's, America's, the #1 advocate showing you how dangerous electromagnetic frequencies are. Sometime I'll come and I'll do a whole lecture for you on that. But look at these trends. 1999 to 2008, we now estimate that about 7 out of 10 women have some level of thyroid dysfunction. Either they're on the border, or they have hyper, too fast, or hypo, too low. And Graves' disease is one of the names you'll hear. Hashimoto's disease. And men, it was negligible. One generation, a generation's 25 years ago, now men, or 20% of us, have thyroid disorder. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse for the same reason I just explained. Here's a woman diagnosed in October 12, diagnosed with breast cancer. She was sort of an easy one. She was a stage 2. May 1st, 13, free of any active cancer. It's been completely clear of it. And so people have been shy of saying that lifestyle medicine can reverse cancer. I'm not shy. I'm going to tell you that that's what I've seen in all these decades of work. Now, it doesn't happen in 100% of cases, but I can tell you. I don't know what the data would show, but it's got to be a much higher amount per capita than people who are taking conventional treatment and not changing their diets and lifestyle. One of my favorite scientists alive today is Dr. David Williams. Up until the 1990s, we really didn't know how the Hippocrates diet worked. We saw people getting better, and we said, wow, that's interesting. But if you asked 5 of us how it worked, you'd have 10 different answers. We didn't know. This guy pretty much is telling us why. 2 of the most powerful anti-cancer phytochemicals in cruciferous vegetables, indole-3 and carbonyl 13C, and sulforaphane, SFN, in the plant. They are present as a glucose conjugates. When the plant is chewed or the cell broken open, an enzyme called myronase is released. This hydrogenizes the carbohydrates, and the end result is free 13C and SFN, sulforaphane. This is chemopreventive. This is words they've come up with in the field of advanced plant-based medicine. So they actually call these chemopreventive, and in the case of Johns Hopkins, they actually call it phytochemo, plant chemo, because it acts in a natural way as chemotherapy does in a totally unnatural way. Eating raw vegetables maintain medicinal chemistry. This is some mayonnaise in your gut bacteria, so 13C and SFN is released, but not nearly as much as if the vegetable is raw. So what we find is that if you're eating cooked vegetables, you're not going to get the anti-cancer effect. Matter of fact, if you cook them above 55 centigrade, it has no anti-cancer. If you don't cook them above 41 or 42, they have all the anti-cancer effects. And he's part of our online program too, by the way. Cruciferous and chemoprotective. Immunological data demonstrates an inverse relationship between cruciferous vegetable intake and cancer risk. So this shows you basically what we know about reduction of glucose. It actually is also an antigenesis, cutting blood flow off to tumor masses. And this is, to me, the most important science relating to lifestyle and coming to cancers itself. Here's a second. You may want to take some pictures of this, because this is the world's leading authority on all of this as we go. And it was first really discussed in the media worldwide when Hopkins in '92 did a study, and they looked at cruciferous vegetables, cabbage, which is very popular in your country. But they also then realized that broccoli was the best of all the cabbage family as an anti-cancer agent. But they continued to go one step further. They realized if you took a broccoli sprout and ate it, it was 50 times more anti-cancer than the broccoli itself. Now think of this. So broccoli sprouts, by the way, you can take 1/2 kilo of seeds and you can produce actually 10 kilos of food. That not only is incredibly high in protein, will help with ulcers, will help to take plaque off the veins, but it's the #1 anti-cancer agent ever discovered, ever researched at this point. So you may want to put a handful of broccoli sprouts in your salad at least 2 or 3 times, 4 times a week. Now here are some other interesting stories about cooking certain foods. First, it was my wife's country over 40 years ago that talked about this, and they were scoffed at. Of course, the scientists are the most arrogant group of people I've ever met in my life. So they always laugh at what they don't believe. And they're not open-minded, so they don't want to learn anything. So that's what happened when this wonderful institute in Stockholm basically started to say that potato chips and cooked 100% organic grains can give you cancer. And everyone laughed at it. They're not laughing anymore because there's overwhelming data. I write books for the scientists on this called Food is Medicine. So this is called acrylamides. So the renowned Karolinska in Stockholm discovered and published the initial findings on how cooking morphs the chemistry of plants, making a cancer-causing compound called an acrylamide. Researchers at Harvard School of Public Medicine have found an increased risk of ovarian and endometrial cancer among non-smoking postmenopausal women who consume foods and beverages containing high levels of acrylamides, a natural occurring chemistry found in grains. So you can take an organic grain and make a morning cereal out of it, and it's cancer-causing. This isn't maybe, this is a fact. Chips, which I lived on, pretzels, and other common baked and snack foods. Acrylamides are produced during the heating of these foods. One of the most interesting big studies they did was in Holland over here. In a Dutch study of 120,000 people, half of whom were women, so it was about 50-50, found that women who absorbed more acrylamides were twice as likely to develop ovarian cancer or womb cancer as those who ingested a small amount. The higher amounts eaten by the women involved were the equivalent to a single pack of crisp. So they're talking about not family-sized potato chips, but little tiny bags of potato. I never ate a little tiny bag of potato chips. I was so happy when the family size came out. I would eat 2 of the whole family-sized potato chips. I mean, outrageous. Half a pack of biscuits or a portion of chips daily. So you want more ovarian cancer? You want more womb cancer? You want more every kind of cancer. Just keep eating cooked chips, cooked grains. Organic plant foods is equally subject. So people say, well, I eat organic food. I don't care if it's organic or not. You're just spending more money to get sick at that point. When a seed is planted, it grows into a viable living food. Anyone ever think about that? How many of you would, now it's spring's coming here. So next month, many of you have gardens. How many of you in this room have a garden? Well, are you going to take all of your seeds in April and cook them before you plant them? Why wouldn't you cook a seed before you plant them? Anyone know? Because it's not going to grow. Well, just think about that for a minute. It's a little difficult, I know. So chemical derived from broccoli sprouts shows promise in treating autism. How do you like that? So we're not only talking about cancer now, we're talking about autism. Johns Hopkins, by the way. Broccoli sprouts could improve serum triglyceride and oxidize LDL cholesterol ratios in type 2 diabetic patients. Now we're talking about that. So nature didn't become specialist. Nature didn't say oncology, cardiology. It says good is good and good is good for everything. So that's the new mantra for doctors. So when the patient comes to you, how you convince them to live a healthy lifestyle, you say good is good and good is good for everything. Problem is you have to teach them what's good because they've been taught very well what's bad. So here's just a handful of studies, some that I submitted to my series of academic books called Food is Medicine, of what happens when you cook a food. Come from all over the world here. This is over in Asia, where they actually talked about cooking foods and what happened to the proteins in the foods. Here's another one, heating anti-cancer properties of garlic or GAN. That's Penn State University. This is down in South America. Vitamin retention in cooked, chilled, and cooked. They also looked at cooling and freezing food. Also looked at how you lost certain vitamins in there. Vitamin C loss, when you cook a food, University of Pittsburgh, etc. Now here's a actual photograph, living photograph of breast cancer. I want you to look at how that stuff grows. So this is scary. And at this point, I don't know what the statistics are here in your country, but it looks like 1 out of 7 women in my country will have breast cancer. 1 out of 7 in the United States will have it. And food is a big part of that, but also polyester and nylon bras are a big part of that. My wife and I wrote a book 20 years ago called Killer Clothes, and we talk about synthetic garments, man-made fibers, chemically rich clothing, how they create make-believe estrogens, and it actually creates certain forms of cancers and other diseases. So this is how cancer grows. Isn't that scary? And this is pretty much relevant to all forms of cancer. So they start off really small, as you see, and they keep splitting, growing, they become tumor masses, and then they become difficult because you can't see this, but they have long tentacles that come out that literally suck up stem cells. All cancers are child molesters. How many of you know what I mean by that? That the only cell that will become a cancer cell is a stem cell. Full-grown adult cells will never ever submit to become a cancer. So they send these tentacles out, and I always picture stem cells as being sweet little adolescent girls or boys, 12-year-old boys or girls. And the cancer is like a bad guy in the car with candy. And the tentacle comes out and says, "Get into the car, little boy, get into the car, little girl," and comes up through that tentacle and creates the mass. That's how we spread and metastasize all forms of cancer. This is a close-up of what cancer cells look like. So most people, even who have cancer, think that a doctor comes in and basically cuts a nice piece out of you and it goes away. The problem is when they cut the piece out, the tentacles spill millions and millions, if not billions, of cancer cells. That's why the latest work that they're doing in North America and most of Europe with women with breast cancer, when they have you on the table, they say, "Well, you don't have cancer in the right breast. Why don't we just take that off now?" Because what they're seeing in case after case, when they cut this breast and it spills, it inevitably can go over, not inevitably, high chance going over to the other breast. This is where prostate cancer, they do the biopsies called Gleason, which are the only ones that are good, by the way. You have to poke many times, and then it goes to the hip and it goes to the liver. And there's studies out of Europe that I don't have time to speak about that show the less you do with cancer of prostate and breast, often the better it is for you. And in fact, Harvard University concurs with that. That one got stuck somehow. Curcumin has a potential to stop the proliferation of blood vessels that feed cancerous tumors. Thereby it can stop cancer. Well, let's go back. So what we're actually saying here is that I think I read something like 87 different studies that looked at curcuminoids in stopping the genesis, or the growth of cancer. It actually shortens those little tentacles, so prevents the stem cell from going up. Not totally, but dramatically reduces stem cell advancement. 200 micrograms of selenium taken daily in fortified yeast could also protect against liver cancer. This is associated with hepatitis B and C. So many times when you have hepatitis B and C, it morphs into cancer if it's not treated or put into total or mostly in remission. So these are the things that we know. Plant-based foods and oil rich in omega-3 fats contain GLA, a substance found to disintegrate tumor cell linings and reduce tumor growth in animal studies. Now look at that. Unless I read this study, I wouldn't have known about that. What they were actually showing is that something I knew nothing about having to do with reduction of tumor mass, GLA, but what's interesting to me, our diet is loaded with GLA. What do you think a sunflower sprout is filled with? What do you think all of these seeds that have oils in them, when you germinate them and make them a living food, have in them? Major again, good is good, and you don't have to improve on good. This guy is the most courageous man I know in the world that wrote the most important book in history on cancer. I've had him at medical conference at Hippocrates. What I do is periodically, every 3 or 4 years, is I get all the cutting-edge doctors together who are renegades, the ones that everyone else hates, that I know are leading the world of science. They're really taking us to the next place. And he was one of them about 3 years ago. You can see this on our internet site, on the Hippocrates website. We did a Food as Medicine conference. And Dr. Seyfried is unbelievable. He wrote the definitive book on cancer, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. So he basically shows, without any question, it has little to nothing to do with genetics. And you're being taught in school that genetics is the major cause of cancer. He proved it. If you read this book, if you're a scientist, if you know biology, if you know chemistry, if you know the way the anatomy works, you read this book and still believes that genetics, you haven't understood the book. That simple. When you hear this man speak, I'm going to tell you something. As strong and as radical as I may appear to be, he makes me look like a Boy Scout. This guy rails against mainstream treatments of cancer for good reason. Here's something that hardly is ever talked about. Sugar. Sugar is unbelievably bad for you. Now, about 40 years ago at Hippocrates, we started to notice the visible tumors that you could see, our medical team could see, when people ate a lot of fruit would start to grow. Fruit, we're talking about. So now, we didn't know why, and we didn't know how, and we didn't have any science on it, but we made a decision. Let's take fruit away from people with cancer. After we saw the results of that, within a year, we took fruit away from people who had viral diseases and bacterial diseases. Now there's overwhelming evidence. You may want to read my book, Sweet Disease. Each chapter gives you the latest research from the top universities worldwide on how all sugars, including fruit sugar, feed diseases and even depression. You may also want to know that the latest study came out December 14th last year that showed all sugars, including fruit sugar, are 20 times more addictive than cocaine. Now let me repeat what I said. Now let me tell you how I know that to be true. I loved meat, but I gave it up in one day. I ate the worst meat, and I used to fry it in butter. One day I gave it up. It took me 3 years to give dairy food up, because I kept saying, well, you know, it's just dairy food. It took me 30 years to give up sugar. I just renamed my sugar. Everyone gets rid of the white sugar. That's easy. Then you go to the brown sugar. Then you go to the honey. Then you go to the agave syrup. Then you go to the maple syrup. Then I went to eating 15-kilo watermelons and 10 mangoes at a sitting. I was still a dope addict. I was just taking another kind of dope. In my book, Sweet Disease, I quote a study out of Princeton University, one of our top 5 universities in America, where they looked at full-blast cocaine addicts and heroin addicts 10 years ago. They photographed with MRIs their brain. Then they took the rest of us sugar addicts. Everyone in this auditorium is a sugar addict. I'm a recovering sugar addict, but I'm a sugar addict. That's it. And guess what was more addictive than cocaine and heroin? Sugar. So forgive yourself on still. Now, we have lots of studies that will show you, you can cherry pick studies. The phytochemicals and all the wonderful things that are in fruit, but there's also an awful lot of sugar. And I'm not saying no fruit. If you're sick, I'm saying no fruit. That's been our mantra for 40 years, and it's worked. This isn't anything but evidential science to me. I see it work. We pull it away, people get better. But smaller amounts of fruit in your diet would be better. Higher amounts of green in your diet would be better. Cancer is a metabolic disease. High consumptions of vegetables and fruits and the avoidance of high refined sugar-contained foods are likely to reduce the risk of colon cancer. The study done back in '94. Nobody read the study, seemingly. We also look at refined sugars and cancers. IgA, these are inflammatory markers, are implicated with increased consumption of all forms of sugar. Fructose is the most notorious since it metabolizes like fat. How many of you know that? Guess who taught me that? I didn't know that until 8-9 years ago. Dr. Seyfried. He sat me down and showed me the evidence. Spent 3 hours. I'm a little slow. 3 hours on a napkin, and then finally some. He said, do you realize every other sugar makes you fat? This one acts like fat. It metabolizes like fat. Now, why does that have any relevance? How many of you know who Otto Warburg is? Well, if you're a scientist or a doctor, you better know who Otto Warburg is, because he's the definitive guy on cancer research. Back in 1924, he published his study. And he said, all we have to do is reduce oxygen by one-third, and even a healthy person will begin to have cancer. Guess what? If you metabolize fruit sugar like fat, it's going to reduce what? Oxygen, period. End of story. You want to debate? We can debate, but that's the story. We examine the association between dietary GA and GL and pancreatic cancer by conducting a hospital-based case control study in Italy, 326 cases of pancreatic cancer and 652 control patients. They doubled the control, which is interesting on this. Dietary data was obtained with the use of validation food frequency questionnaire. GI was positive associated with pancreatic cancer. No significant association was observed between GL and pancreatic cancer. Consumption of sugar, candy, honey, and jam was positively associated with pancreatic cancer, whereas consumption of fruit, in this case, was inversely associated. So in this study, contrary to what I've just said, with pancreatic cancer, the fruit, now they weren't taking high amounts of it, but the fruit that was consumed wasn't activating the pancreatic cancer. Research of the Linus Pauling Institute, it's now in Oregon, has discovered yet another reason why the sulforaphane compound in broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables so medically improves not just one, but two ways to prevent cancer through the complex mechanism of epigenetics. This is really interesting. Numerous important findings show that cancer cells can readily metabolize fructose to increase proliferation. This is University of California, Los Angeles. This has major significance for cancer patients given dietary fructose consumption, which indicates that efforts to reduce refined fructose intake or inhibit fructose mediation actions will disturb cancer growth. December 13, researchers at Texas Woman University showed that if you take certain kind of oils that you literally, from really odd places, like linseed oil, which you call it flaxseed, or we call it flaxseed oil, you call it linseed oil over here. Tonneau wood oil, etc. Literally, it's helped to find ways to reduce cancer.
Mr. Brian.
IV supplementation of conquest of cancer. So that's where we're going to stop. I could go all day on this one. But thanks for listening and be well.
Thank you, Dr. Brian. Matter of fact, what do we have here in Kaunas Lifestyle Medicine program, Master's program? To be honest, the roots of this program came from Hippocrates Institute. Aurelius Veriga visited that institute, and when they came back here in Lithuania, everything started to grow up in the way that we have now today. So just some preparations, and I would like to represent you another our keynote speaker, Chad Malone, Dr. Chad Malone, e-health technologies guru. Throughout his healthcare career, Dr. Malone has been a leader in the biomedical informatics and clinical and translational science field. So in a background of, am I right, in a background of medical, you are anesthesiologist. So stage is yours. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. You've heard all the facts today, and what I really wanted to do was talk about how the rubber meets the road, or how do you actually put this into your life. Few things I wanted to cover today. I'm actually going to use an example from a very large employer. Dexter Sherney, who's a colleague of mine, as was mentioned earlier, ran all the medical benefits as well as the on-site clinics at Cummins Diesel. Very, very, very large employer, and they practice lifestyle medicine. So I kind of wanted to show you a little bit when Adrian told us about the workplace wellness programs. This is the nutrition piece, or the food piece of fitness, finance, mental health, kind of fits all together. So I want to focus really on nutrition. There's a couple things, particularly that Dr. Kelly mentioned about his wife and Brenda. You remember when he was saying that he's there with the patient, telling them everything, and they're all excited, but the real magic happened where? In the cooking class, in the clinic, right? What happens today, and I can say this for a fact, coming from a large academic medical center in the US, you come in for a heart attack or something terrible, and you're in there for 3 or 4 days, your life's changed. You get a bunch of papers when you discharge, and a nutritionist runs up and says, "You've got to change how you eat," and blah, 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 and just tells you all this stuff, gives you papers. Everyone here who's been a patient, tell me what you do when you go home with all those papers. Trash, right? And you just continue on your life. So the whole point of what I'm going to talk about is engagement, or sustained engagement of a patient to follow the lifestyle medicine recommendations. So it's a little more action-oriented than facts and figures. I grew up most of my life outside of the U.S. I live in the U.S. now, so you know, token American here, but most of my life was outside. And what's interesting about the U.S. is, as this quote says, it's a great place to be sick, but it's a terrible place to be well. And that's what we've created. It's a big problem. I'm not going to beat this to death, but you can see that tobacco is now the 4th biggest thing that people are trying to change. But diet is number 1, eating our healthcare cost. Almost 86% of our cost in the healthcare system today is because of what we put in our mouths. And I know that's very basic, but it's truly what we eat is causing this incredible burden. And more than the financial burden, think about the quality of life for the patient. I just read, actually, just now, I looked at my news feed, and Thai Airlines now has a waist circumference limit for their airplanes. I mean, okay, anyway. I don't like this word. I consider this a cuss word, diet. If you say diet, what do you think? Oh, I'm going to eat this special stuff. If I go out and eat with my friends, I have to say, no, I'm on a diet, and you feel all weird. They actually, I saw a funny study where they had 2 of the exact same meals prepared the exact same way, and one was normal, and the other one they called nutritious and healthy. And then they had them rate the taste of these meals, and guess which one rated worse? The healthy, nutritious meal. It was the same food. So I really don't like the word diet, because as you know, only 10% of the people keep that weight off. There is a TV show in the US called The Biggest Loser. I don't know, have you heard of that? It's heavy people trying to lose all this weight. There is only one contestant over all those seasons who has kept the weight off. And you know how they did that? They made their home environment the exact same way as when they were on the show. So they took out the chips, they took out the cookies, they knew what was at the Biggest Loser place, and they changed their environment. And that's what really takes change. Again, the benefits we've seen with the reduction in blood pressure, lipids, weight, diabetic. Bottom line, we're doing this to ourselves. So I am an anesthesia critical care physician. I also sit on the Florida Society of Addiction Medicine board, and I deal a lot with addicts. And I look at food kind of the same way. It's like, hey, you're a heroin addict and you love heroin, but you know what? I'm going to help you, and I'm going to give you this other stuff so you can take as much heroin as you want. That's really what we're doing with food to an extent. Now, the problem we face, and I'm going to focus this on the U.S. You walk into a grocery store. The choices are overwhelming, and they're placed in certain areas so that you'll buy them. The large food retailers in the U.S. make their margin, make their profit. A lot of that is advertisement that's paid to them by food companies. This is overwhelming. We eat every day. I read a study that said we think about food or make a decision 224 times a day. That's a lot. So to have this type of environment at you is very hard to make a conscious decision. And we all know that if you took all these foods in the store, that probably 90% of them are made up of the same thing, right? High fructose corn syrup, soy. It's just in a different thing. So we have to be careful of advertising. The problem, as you know, is that we are spending an exorbitant amount of money taking care of things that are preventable. We not only spend the money to take care of patients, to take care of a symptom, but everything suffers. So I'm trying to put this in the context of an employer, that the average cost per patient due to chronic disease is about $1,600 US a year. So at these companies, one of my clients is Google, and we are at every Google campus in the world. Imagine all those people, it really adds up. Or a Boeing, or any of these employers. The cost is overwhelming. And as Adrian so well put it, that ultimately a business wants to be profitable, and to do so, having happy and healthy employees to get there is what they're attempting to do today. So I wanted to talk about this concept of food scripts, or food as medicine. There's a lot of buzz in the media about food, right? Sugar's bad, this is bad, there's all this press about food. And what's interesting is we're seeing in the market a lot of consolidation of companies. Companies that would not have been involved with food are now purchasing large food companies. We saw Amazon buy Whole Foods. So we're seeing a focus, at least economically, on food. In the US, we have a piece of healthcare economics called pharmacy benefits management. What pharmacy benefits management is, it's software, but it's a whole process for a hospital to manage their drugs, to get the best prices possible, to make sure they're working and being prescribed correctly. So it is a whole industry. And what is great is that food can be part of this benefits management, food benefits management. I debated on whether to say this, but I think it's pretty pertinent. When I started medical school, one of the first lectures, literally, I think it was my first lecture, the attending said, "There's 2 rules in medicine." I said, okay. Number 1, the patient's always right, and the patient always lies. And he goes, and you're the detective. And funny part is, as an anesthesiologist, I can tell when you come in and say, "I only have 1 beer a week." Trust me, my drugs will tell you when you go to sleep. I know exactly how much you drink a week. But the whole point of, we're all investigating, right? We're investigating and we're helping a patient. And today what happens is, patient comes in as a physician, I know I should probably do a nutritional consult, but my brain is also saying it never works, right? That's just the thought. It never works, so I'm just going to give metformin for diabetes, or I'm going to give a thiazide for high blood pressure. Giving a drug is the easiest thing to do. And that, of course, leads to further and further expense and does nothing to really do what we call step therapy. You're supposed to go in steps when you're treating a patient. Now, the fun part is all of the algorithms as a physician that you learn to treat hypertension, to treat diabetes, to treat anything, usually that first step in step therapy is what? Lifestyle modification. Go ahead, look it up everywhere. It'll be lifestyle modification. We skip it because we don't think it has efficacy. And the sad part is, if you institute lifestyle change around diet, it's been shown to have, last one I read, so forgive me, was 8.3% better outcome than the first-line drug. Now, I'm not talking about cancer. I'm talking about diabetes, hypertension, chronic diseases as such. Every guideline suggests lifestyle modification, which is diet and exercise, right? And you know, the basic, we always hear from our physician and we go, yeah, I'm not gonna do that, right? And one of the things where I work, we are religious about being based in science. So there are certain diets, there are certain protocols, there are certain things that we know have efficacy, and building around that's important. The first thing a patient will do is say, I can't eat healthy, it's too expensive. And the funny part is, when I look at their budget and I look at what they're really buying, eating healthy is actually cheaper. So for a patient to start to make a change, we have to show that, number one, it's good for you, right? Not only in your health, but you can save money. And number two, it's easy. And number three, the whole family can do it. Because eating is a social occasion, right? My wife, I love her to death, but no matter what, we have dinner together as a family every night. And I think it's great. So we get together as people to eat. So that's why I don't like the diet. I like more the diet word, more of a lifestyle change and modification to ultimately get to step one, lifestyle change, and hopefully skip the medication part. And of course, I could come up and tell you all these great stats about what we've done, and we have, but we're seeing people stop medication. We're seeing people drop hemoglobin A1C by 2 or 3 points just through diet. So it's highly efficacy, has efficacy here. So to understand how this works, and I'm going to use kind of the Cummins and the other academic medical center models, is in the US, you can in certain cases write a prescription for access to food. So if a health system has a pharmacy with an F, F-A-R-M-A-C-Y, sorry, Dr. Kelly, I had to throw that in for you. If they have a food bank where people can get food, they can write that prescription and then fulfill that and follow the recommended diet that they've been assigned. Now, what that looks like, and I always laugh here, that we've got this patient who loves to dance, and she works all day and kind of munches at work, right? And sees her physician, and at that point is told you need to change your lifestyle. Now that's a hard thing to do. Writes a prescription for access to food, but also gives them digital tools that allow them to incorporate that change into their lifestyle. Now, one thing I want to point out is that, let's be honest with each other, that when we look in the mirror, our self-talk about ourselves is sometimes not very kind, is it? Oh, Chad, you're looking fat today. Oh, you have gray hair. I mean, we're very critical. Imagine if you have disease, right? You're looking in the mirror. It's a depressing time. So you want the solution to help them change their lifestyle that's positive, that's reinforcing, that doesn't feel punitive or like they've failed. So for this person, she has been prescribed a certain diet and has tools where they have recipes, how to make those recipes, encouragement, and I'll show you exactly here. They can even have food delivered, right? So you can have fresh food delivered. You can have meal kits. One thing I will say, even though I know I'm from industry, I will advertise the fact that what we believe in is no advertisements. I don't know about Lithuania, but in America, you get coupons every week from a grocery store, right? And the first thing on the cover is what? Potato chips, soda, things like that. We wanted to make sure people had an environment that had no advertising, that it was fresh for them. So one of the things, I'm just going to kind of skip here because I want to get to how to make that change, right? So anytime you make change, it's uncomfortable, is it not? Change is hard. However, as we've heard, you have to change for a certain amount of time for that to become natural and to become a habit. So you want to make sure that you have something that matches the patient and their lifestyle, something that is complete, that doesn't leave out any part of their natural, either their medical makeup, their economic status, etc. And you want it to be very personalized. So what we instituted at Cummins was what we call a NutriQuiz. Anyone that gets a prescription from that physician in there, either on their phone or their tablet or on the computer, whichever they choose, we have a quick quiz. And it's very simple. Do you eat breakfast? How many times do you eat fruit a week? Basic questions. But the beauty of the basic questions on the back end, we're looking at cholesterol, we're calculating algorithms on the back end to really understand them, but more importantly, it's what their lifestyle is. If you're someone that goes to work every day and at lunch you only have 30 minutes, so the easiest thing for you is a pre-prepared meal to put in the microwave or something else, we have to make sure that we fit your lifestyle or you're not going to change. We also, and what I love about Dr. Kelly's movement in this arena, we do take into account if they've had their genetics run, right? So we'll look at certain variables around metabolism and other things to make sure that what they're following actually matches them even more on a genetic level. Again, based in science, we want to make sure, and what was instituted at Cummins, which is kind of what I'm discussing here, followed the basic tenets, the tenets of the Mediterranean/DASH diet. And we do believe in following the guidelines, particularly the ones that are sound. Within the provider piece of what we do when they're writing the prescription, there of course are the basic 14 diet types. There's FODMAP for GI, Mediterranean, DASH, MIND, all of those. But we also offer plant-based induction for ketogenic diets. We have plant-based induction for diabetes. So we've tried to be as plant-based as possible, but to ask a patient never to eat meat again can sometimes not work. So you have to be able to put the lean meats in there. So out of that, we get a Nutri-Score. And what's nice on this Nutri-Score is we just completed a clinical trial, and we have one more in process, and hopefully one day the gentleman here with me will understand that the Nutri-Score is a validated snapshot or indicator of your dietary status. But what that does is it compares that patient to either their work group or it compares them to the population as a whole, shows them where they need to eat more fiber, more vegetables, more plants. But then what that does is it translates in to their food choices, so they don't have to even worry about this again. What's offered them are the things that will make them feel better. It's a family affair, so we always suggest, particularly with our patients, we ask them, who's the cook in the house? And if you have a 65-year-old steel worker on the bed, he looks at his wife and goes, her. So we want to get them, signed up. So, yeah, exactly. So we want to make sure, like I said with The Biggest Loser, is that there's not one person in the household trying to make this big change. We want to make it fun and easy for everyone. And the only testimonial I'll say is my wife, okay? My wife is an Army vet, crossfitting. I mean, she lifts more weights than I could ever lift in my life. Very, very healthy. But when I met her, she's a carnivore. I mean, carnivore. I mean, she could just all meat. And what was funny is she got hooked up with Zapongo, right? And now ancient grains are her favorite thing. And so now our household is like a lot less meat and more healthy stuff. And it did it in a way that she wanted to do it, right? Because my wife, if you tell her to do anything, no offense to you young ladies, but she's got a strong will, like they are the stronger and fairer sex, I'll tell you that much. But you want to have something that has choices. So when a diet is chosen, the recipes that are available to them are based on their diet. Are they pescatarian? Are they vegetarian? Do they have food allergies? But it's all there for them. But more importantly, you want a feedback loop. And that feedback loop says, I don't like this recipe. So through our artificial intelligence, we know we'll start to pull those out and start to render more and more and more what they want. Then I loved this, and the Cummins folks loved that, because I don't know how many of you go home at night and you go, oh no, I have to make dinner. And you go to your cupboard, right, and you open it up, you open your refrigerator and go, what do I have? Well, this is a process to come in and click what you have in your cupboard, and then recipes that match your diet will render really fast for you, so you can use it very quickly. And that's good for lifestyle. And again, I'm talking about creating a sustained change in these folks. As you build your meal plan, you start to build a grocery list and can either have that delivered to you or you have what you need at the store, so you have that. Now, here's where one thing I really enjoy is that patients will complain, I don't want to eat healthy, because when they go to the store, right, there's the organic section, and then there's the normal section, and the organic section is all like $2 more for everything. So they think it's expensive, and what we've done is hooked up to all the grocers in the US, so that as you make that grocery list, you're actually rendered like that. The coupons that you get with all the Coke and the chips, tear all that out, but where can I get cucumbers cheaply? Where can I get my flour? Where can I get things that aren't advertised but are basic staples to help them live their life? So we want to save them money. And again, a lot of these employers will tie rewards to eating healthy and having lower numbers, like if their LDL is dropping or if their BMI is dropping, they offer rewards. And they really enjoy that. One of the other things that's very important, as we've found, is that communication with the patient's important. So I was talking with the head nutritionist at Brigham and Women's, who's a friend of ours. She says, look, Chad, I have 800 beds in this hospital. I have a total of 20 nutritionists to cover 800 beds. And 4 of those nutritionists are over at the cancer hospital at Dana-Farber, so I only have 16. She goes, of the people I need to see, I only see 20%, right? So out of all the people that need nutritional counseling, they can only see 20%. And then I asked the fatal question. Of that 20%, how many do you follow up with? And she said, 10% of that 20%, so literally nothing. So they're taxed, right? So the ability for them through analytics to see how people are using it, what they're doing, if they're not using it, to have that signal them, then to send a text message or pick up a phone, they're starting to be able to take those 20 nutritionists and act as if they had 60 nutritionists through technology. Engagement's important for a patient, and more importantly, it's encouragement. It's encouragement. We've been far too punitive, I think, in our approach. This is a piece that's very interesting, probably to you, Adrian, but all of these large employers have their own cafes, right, at these big employment sites. So one of the things that we made sure is there's tons of recipe apps, and those are all cute, but none of them are based in science or the full solution, is that when that person is at work and they're going to go down to the cafeteria, they have their approved entrees show up on their app so they know what's down there that fits their diet and eats better. Now, the economic benefits, I'll show you in a minute, are very interesting about what food sales did at these things. So, Google, Microsoft, Boeing, Cummins, all of these worldwide use this, and it's a great way so that you never feel like you're cheating. You're still following your prescribed nutrition profile. Also, when you're eating out, I don't think there's a clinician in this room that can look at me and say, I have a 60-year-old patient who's eaten Friday. On Friday, they go to this certain restaurant with their 4 buddies, and they've been doing that for 40 years. Tell me that they're going to stop going with their buddies. That just doesn't happen, right? So to meet the lifestyle of these folks, to be able to have, even at the restaurants, to render the things that are better for them, that match their diet, so they don't feel, I'm on a diet, I can't order this. All they do is look down and go, I want that. So it's a way, again, to be comprehensive. So what happens? Well, this is a 1-month outcome at Cummins. And this is in Nutri-Score, but you can see that they're increasing their vegetable intake, their fruit intake, their fiber to bad carbs ratio. They're starting to see progress. And what's interesting is, as this progresses and you're getting 6 months to a year, you're seeing drastic drops in their biometrics, in their LDL. I was going to show you a video, but because mine is a U.S. healthcare computer, it's locked down and I can't hook up here. But we have users that you would not think would follow any sort of nutritional regimen, but just love this and have been able to drop weight and feel good about themselves, which is what's most important. So if you go to an employer and say, hey, this whole solution, we're going to take into account your cafes on site, and they go, well, is that going to decrease my sales at these cafes? At first, we were very scared, but numerous customers have come back and kind of shown that the gross sales at these cafeterias stay the same, but what changes are the foods they sell. So you'll see an increase in healthy breakfasts, salads, snacks. You're starting to see them move away. Now, what we've done, we're partnered with Compass and Sedesco and a lot of those big food vendors, is that at most of our clients, we even change in the cafe where the food is placed. So when you walk in, normally you'd see the donuts and the candy bars and all that right at eye level. We'll work with them just like advertisers do in supermarkets and say, nah, let's put this down here and let's put up the fresh fruit. Let's put up stuff. And it's funny because they're seeing drastic change. And even though you would think that they would quote unquote lose money, they're not. But they're also getting a healthy workforce. So there is no trade-off here. You know, benefits, you know, to an employer economically are huge. Places like Cummins and other, Cerner is another one that has an enclosed health plan. So, you know, in the US we have a patient, we have a provider, and then normally we have a payer, insurance, right? It's kind of a triangle. Some of these are enclosed. It's the same same entity doing all of it. And they've found that paying for an induction diet of 3 months of food is by far cheaper in 6 months to a year than the normal interventions. So they're starting to see these employee benefits and making sure that their employees are happy, productive, and keeping costs down. Now, one thing I will say in the US is the gentlemen who are here are pioneers. And I don't say that lightly because I used to be a normal physician, right, before I was really got into more lifestyle medicine, that most providers don't think about doing this first, right? But through their efforts, what's very interesting is we're starting to see a change, and we're starting to see people and providers be more open because they're seeing the results. And if I say anything, they wouldn't change if the results were there, I promise you. So we're starting to see that. And we have a few health systems that are fully getting into food as medicine and using that as first line. So I kind of went a little more technical here, but I just want you to know that as you're in your practice and as you're practicing quote-unquote lifestyle medicine, a lot of our health systems have cooking classes, which are awesome, to get the patients involved. You really need to make sure that you have, after that visit, a method and a plan to help them integrate it into their lifestyle, and that's how change happens. So just don't think because you're the doctor and you said so that it's going to happen. I guess, you know, I got to laugh up front. You know, after my years of experience, it just doesn't happen. So any way that you can meet the patient where they are and improve their life is really the path to changing them and changing you. So I'm very thankful to be here in Lithuania. I do apologize. I have a crazy flight, so I have to jump out of here. But thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chad. Thank you. So let me shortly introduce another our keynote speaker. She's how to say, researcher and maybe practitioner in modern approach of physical activity from Barcelona University and University of Health Sciences here. Please, do you need any help?
And give Dexter the business.
So, thank you, Agne, for taking the part in this ping pong game in our program, because she was changed 2 times her time of speaking. So, and her topic will be quite interesting, for example, for me. And it sounds physical activity, embarrassing a healthy lifestyle. Inactivity, sorry. Okay, Agne.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to say my sincere thanks for the organizers for inviting me here today. I'm really delighted to stand here and to give my presentation on both physical activity and inactivity. And before starting, I just have a short question for all of you. During the lunchtime, you went to the pharmacy faculty, and please ask yourself, have you climbed the stairs or you took the elevator? Okay, I'm really happy to hear that the majority are saying stairs, because it is your choice to become more physically active and to decide how you are moving and which direction you are going to. Because we can't give the talks if we are not being an examples for our patients or for our clients, if we are not keeping the way on this lifestyle. The objective that the majority of you who are staying here today, you are wanting to approach. But a lot of challenges are on our way, and it's not easy at all to embrace it and to decide, I am going to live in a healthier lifestyle. So I hope to offer the audience some food for thought during my presentation. And first of all, I would like to bring the definition of physical activity. And right now, if you could just stand a bit and make 2 squats, because I definitely know that it's pretty painful to sit so long time, or turn around, or stretch a bit, or stand, sit and stand, because you were sitting extremely prolonged period of time. And this physical activity is any kind of movement that is being produced by our body, by our muscles. And basically, if you can see that in a lot of majority researchers, scientific publications, physical activity is standing as one part of the way, the core, the path towards the healthy lifestyle. And we heard a lot of things about nutrition. We heard a lot of things about sleep importance, and we have to encourage the physical activity in our lifestyles, and just use this time to breathe in and to breathe out, because during the sitting you definitely wasn't breathing enough. And all of you know that physical activity has plenty of benefits. And my main message is that everyone, independently of his age, is available to use these benefits. And I'm really happy that in Europe, and right now we are changing the attitudes of your grandmothers who are saying exercising is not for me, exercising is for young people. But it's not like that. Exercise is for everyone, and we can gain all the benefits that physical activity is providing. And in the science, we have a plenty huge amount of resources and scientific investigations which are saying physical inactivity is a modifiable risk factor for cardiovascular diseases, such a hot topic here in Lithuania. I believe that all of you have some parents or your grandparents who are dealing and having these chronic diseases, and other widening variety of chronic diseases such as diabetes mellitus, bone and joint problem, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis. And through physical activity, we can obtain our physical bodies to be more healthier, to have a better fitness, and on the same way to have a better functional state, and also better mental capacities. And I am really glad that 2 years ago the Danish colleagues, they published a paper really in medicine and science in sports, and they are stating that exercise, you can sit, you can stand, you can walk a bit, feel free. And they provided the dosing and the duration of physical activity for these 26 chronic diseases. And the exercising is becoming as a part of a therapy. And a lot of you already mentioned that these people are being encouraged to change their lifestyle and to make this really huge step forward. And all of you know the recommendations of physical activity, but ask yourselves, are you really guiding? Especially the last point, that we shouldn't be sitting so long periods of time. And ask yourself, during this Congress, have we been really polite to our bodies by sitting such a long periods of time? And right now I'm really happy I had the possibilities to participate in some project in Germany, and right now I'm joining some colleagues here in Lithuania. There we are thinking how great the office that would be more physically active, that could constrain you to move more. Because not all of us, we are having this willingness which is coming from inside. The outside is extremely important. How the environment is making us to move more. And let's face the reality, the facts about physical activity. So 6 in every 10 persons, they are not taking any kind of sports. They are not being physically active enough. More than a half of the persons, they are not walking, they are not cycling, they are not gardening. They are missing this physical activity which should be natural. Right now what we are making, we are reintroducing physical activity in a sedentary people. So one of a third persons, we are physically inactive. And it is our target. Yesterday I was in ANSA's meeting and I had a possibility to talk with Duarte Lopez from Portugal, and he said, this is a really hot topic for business as well, because if you make this an active people to start moving, you also achieving more benefits for their health, and it also can be done by business, because everyone wants to have nice clothes while they are going to exercise, to show up. And especially the younger generation, they are really thinking about the trends, what is popular. So let's make the physical activity to be part of a trendy thing, and a healthy lifestyle becoming as a part of something that everybody would be proud of. And the reality which we are facing, if you are going to the PubMed and you are just entering, physical activity is really becoming a tsunami, a pandemic of physical inactivity in our daily lifestyle. So something must be done. And I really liked this chart, which is representing behavioral gears. Starting from R, which is reversed, and going towards the first, second, third, and fourth gear. It's the same as in our cars. And imagine what is basically done in physical activity, in changing and shifting the way the persons are moving. Normally we intend to jump from the reverse physical activity towards the third or the fourth gear. But imagine your car, you are going with your car in reversed gear, and you want to go straight towards the fourth. What is going to happen? How your car is going to move? The relapse and the stalling kind of behavior is becoming seen in our populations, which is missing this part of a light physical activity. You cannot expect somebody just shifting straightly and becoming extremely physically active if he spends a really huge amount of time while being physically inactive. And here come, in this conference, we already heard that walking is something what is really natural for us. And it's really one of the most preferred physical activities. But also, be very careful, because person cannot obtain all the benefits from the walking. Because you can have the person walking in a correct way, in a correct manner, when all the muscles are being activated in the order which is needed to be activated, or the person can move in a dysfunctional manner. And in this way, you are not going to really make that the quality of physical activity is being the highest. And I really liked this paper published in Nature. And as the smartphones come towards the science, it's a bit easier to know what are the guidelines and how much people are moving worldwide. And it was observed that persons who are having a higher body mass, who is a bit more older, and female, unfortunately, are moving less compared to younger people, to the ones who are having less body mass index, and male. Male are more physically active. So our main focus is also to look at these people, to focus on how to make and how to provide the possibilities for them to become more physically active. And it's very curious that the inequality which is being observed between the countries is more associated with obesity. For instance, if we are having two countries with similar amount of daily average steps, the country which is going to have a bigger inequality is going to have more people who are more obese. So when we are placing any kind of interventions for promoting the physical activity, we really need to think about these groups which are marginal and to make them to be involved more in physical activity in order to minimize the disequality of daily average steps between our population. And this difference between female and male was found to be mitigated by the walkability of a city. If a city is being more walkable and the person is being constrained to move more, we can observe 3 peaks in the morning hours, lunchtime, and hours after work. People start to move more. And by having this more walkable environment, we are becoming encouraged to become more physically active. And this is just an example how walkable are the cities or the towns in Lithuania. The information is obtained from the walk score, and here we are having Anykščiai, very beautiful town, Kaunas, and Barcelona. And from my own experience, I can say that Barcelona is really one of the best places for the walkers, for persons who are willing to be active and to engage in physical activity. So also we should think how to make the future cities to be more friendly, that we could have more possibilities to cycle, to walk, and to feel safe while doing it. And being as a physiotherapist, I really need to say you that the most important things which are normally is being missed in physical activity is the quality. We should really focus on the quality of the movement. Sometimes we have this kind of thinking that if I am moving, working more, I am going to become more fit. Or we have this kind of saying, no pain, no gain, very extremely popular in physical activity. But the reality is much different. The possibility, what is really important to understand that an unfit person can move very well functionally. And fit person can move in an unfunctional way. And sometimes we are going to want to achieve the fitness level of activity while moving dysfunctionally. So at first you really need to know your body, to know the competencies of your body, how it is moving, to become aware of your possibilities, and just afterwards start to increase the fitness of your own body. And here we are having a few examples of different patterns which can be observed by moving, and everyone would agree that the first man is walking in a correct dysfunctional manner, while the second person in the blue is walking in the second in a correct manner. So the quality is something extremely important. And not only our body is constraining the way how we are moving, but as well as the environment. And for instance, the temperature was demonstrated to influence both the quality and the quantity of movement. And we also published the paper 2 years ago with the colleagues from the United States, showing that the outdoor environment is helping us to cycle longer periods of time just because of being outside. When you are being outside, your cognitive function is being more coupled with a green color and the fatigue level is being less noticed. And by the constraining, the physical activities being made, you can achieve a lot of different results which you are wanting. But not everything is so nice about physical activity, especially if you are jumping from this reversed towards the third gear, which we were talking previously. You have a really huge possibility that the person is going to notice or to experience the injury. So the physical activity and the movement has both sides, the healing and the injury, the harmful part. And the ones who start to run, they have this desire for changing their lifestyle. And basically, they really want to run, because running helps them to escape from their worries. It helps them to enjoy a natural environment. And one of the most probably important things which is coming to the lifestyle, it provides the coping mechanism. The people start to have a higher level of resilience. And what is extremely negative with running, it is the fact that distance running can become an addictive type of exercise. And especially when the people start to place the targets for becoming a finisher. I have seen so many finishers who get really injured because they overpassed the limit. The finishing the marathon was much more important than their own health. So all the time try to think that both positive and negative effects can be achieved. And looking from the psychological part, running is giving us a higher self-esteem. It really helps us to reinforce, to reconnect with ourselves. And actually, all of the persons are becoming proud of what they did. And running body is how you are imagining the person who is running. Normally, as a slim, as a fit person, but doesn't it contrast with the reality in which we are living? The majority of the people being sedentary and not moving so much. And I have seen this graph in many conferences. There are medical doctors, cardiologists, and they're presenting that when we are entering in this red spot, when we are start talking about the sport is not equal health. In highly professional sport, we have a lot of injuries, and we really don't want a person who is not preparing himself for competition to enter to this place. And you should use moderate physical activity in order to keep you healthier. In this way, you can obtain more benefits and to have less risks. And how to jump from this reverse sedentary lifestyle towards and to foster yourself to become a bit more physically active. From my own point of view, holistic movement practices such as Qigong, Tai Chi, Yoga, Pilates can be a perfect way, as we are being light physical activity, 2-3 mats, which are being consumed. And it also has totally different emphasis on the physical activity. It is not being a goal, you are not placing any kind of goals for yourself. No, you are respecting your own body, you are start to listening, you are becoming more mindfulness. And really, while performing this kind of physical activity, you really need to have a higher proprioceptive information, how your body is being placed in the space, and to look and to observe it and try to minimize the effort which is being placed in order to move. Unfortunately, here in Europe, we have just the data from UK, United States, in the world from United States of America and from Australia. No data is available from Lithuania and neither from Spain, how people are being engaged in this type of physical activities. So basically, people who are younger, they prefer to go to the fitness, while the people who are a bit older, they prefer to go to Tai Chi, Qigong, and the middle age, we go to yoga or Pilates. But I would really say from my own experience that for a younger generation who is not able to concentrate themselves, which are also facing a lot of stress, daily stress, exercises such as Qigong or Tai Chi can really help them to be more at this moment and to really get a lot of benefits. And I would say that here really important message is which is going from public health authorities, not to give this message that Tai Chi or Qigong is just only for elderly. No, it's totally an opposite. In China, where we are practicing this type of exercising from the childhood, and more than 60 million of people in China each day practices Qigong. And to foster your parents, your colleagues, your friends who are physically inactive, just say, let's move 60 minutes per week during 1 week. And it's going to be this first steps, which is probably going to help you to go towards more healthier lifestyle. And I believe that in the lifestyle medicine, you definitely should also have physiotherapists, especially while talking and dealing about these very important things of the quality of the movement, as well as sports psychologists to encourage people to become more adherent and to participate, keep participating in physical activity, as well as public health specialists. And my home message for you is remember the years. Remember these three main groups of people who are being less physically or having more possibilities to be less physically active, as well as try to introduce holistic movement practices, and just 60 minutes of exercise with higher quality of a movement is going to help you to go towards your main goals of healthier life. And I would like to say thanks to my colleagues who are working in Barcelona. And I am focused as well as on sports, on well-being and health, everything what is touching physical activity. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Agnes, once more time. So, I'm missing our keynote speaker. Thank you. Let me shortly introduce another our keynote speaker, Doctor, Professor, very kind man, Mr. Hans Deal, clinical professor, founder of Lifestyle Medicine Institute, offering more than 25 years, nowadays it's 30 years of leadership in the emerging field of lifestyle medicine. However, founder of CHIP, Complete Health Improvement Program, which had enormous success all around the world. Please meet our honor guest, Dr. Hans Deal.
Where do you plug? No. Where is your?
This one here.
This?
Yes. Okay.
Well, the lines are thinning here. I'm delighted to being here. I'm delighted to seeing that lifestyle medicine is emerging as a lighthouse in a turbulent sea of medical care, where we don't know what to do when it comes to turning off chronic diseases that are now taking 86% of our medical dollars, at least in America. I want to talk to you today about the change that have taken place and the change that have to take place. And so I've been assigned to talk to you about the chronic disease solution from allopathic medicine to lifestyle medicine. And the change is coming because now we have the emergence of a new health professional that is teaming up and is providing the augmentation of traditional medical services that can provide education, motivation, inspiration, and hopefully governmental social support and policies. When we have these things in place, we can begin to make a change in treating the chronic disease epidemic much more successfully. We can arrest the tsunami, and we can reverse many of these chronic diseases, such as heart disease and diabetes and hypertension and obesity and depression and arthritis. These are larger diseases that we can only handle symptomatically to any extent in the old medical paradigm. So, I want to talk to you about a velvet medicine revolution. Are you ready for a revolution? And are you willing to welcome a velvet revolutionary? That's what I want to be known today. And when it comes to revolution, when we think of revolution, it's usually transfer of power, usually accompanied by means of illegitimate violence. It's usually a bloody revolution. But I want to talk to you today about a velvet revolution, where you have a non-violent transfer of power. And this kind of revolution always begins in the heart. It's executed by ethical and rational means, and it's centering on values that are largely self-evident and truths that emerge on the basis of scientific evidence. This is a revolution that is truth-based. It sometimes takes longer than we want it to be, but the time will always come, ultimately, for truth to emerge. Let me give an example of a velvet revolution. Czechoslovakia, November 17, 1989. The students are protesting against the power of the Soviet Union over their country. And they begin to march, and they march, and they march, and they march. And within 11 days, the Communist Party relinquishes control. It's over. And a new government is becoming the new concept. And there you see the playwright Václav Havel taking over, ultimately, the government of the Czechoslovakian Republic. Now, this is a political velvet revolution. I want to talk to you today about a velvet revolution in the area of medicine, which is taking place in Lithuania. And it began on January 10, 2014, when it changed my life. Well, it at least changed my focus of my life, because at that time I was drafted by a man by the name of Petros Vanius. He took me aside and he said, "Hans, this is what we need in Lithuania. You need to come to Lithuania." And I didn't realize that he's telling everybody that. I said, no, I'm not telling everybody that. I just bring the best people to Lithuania. So I thought maybe I should give it a try. And before long, we would be on the phone every day, sometimes more than once a day. And we both caught the spirit that here is a great opportunity. I talked to some of my colleagues at the university where I am in Southern California at Loma Linda, the Blue Zone area. And they said, Don't forget about Lithuania. It's 2-3 million people. There's nothing you can do there. They don't speak a language that is not really all that often used anymore nowadays. Forget it. You can't do it. Now, what you don't know about me is, with my German background, when somebody tells me you can't do it, I will do everything I can to prove them wrong. Because I think it's a good idea, it deserves my attention. It's not that I want to be in opposition of someone, it's just that there's a challenge there and I really want to do this. And so I began to talk with Petros. We began to dream about things. I had been involved since 1988 when I started the first Lifestyle Medicine Institute. And even then, particularly then, I began to realize the enormous opposition that can occur when you are starting some new ideas. And if I turn around, you will see all the arrows in my back. Some of them are still there, although the winds have changed and the winds are now blowing from the back. It's so much easier now. Just like Professor Kennedy said, now the children are lucky because of what we as parents suffered, isn't it? But it was worth the suffering, wasn't it? And so the new paradigm was, what can we do in going from managing symptoms when it comes to chronic disease to reversing and preventing these diseases? And so I began to realize Lithuania, I think 1990, 1 year after the wall in Berlin had come down, something happened in Lithuania, and the Soviet Union lost its power and its way and was kicked out. The East leaves, and the West comes in. But it's not politically as much as it is culturally and free market systems. And so the West comes in, and I mean, Petros and I, we visited one of these gas stations a few years ago, 2 years ago, and we needed some gas, and I was interested to see what the gas would cost. I go inside the shop, and I begin to understand, these people don't make the profit from gasoline, they make the profit from selling these American and British and German foods. I mean, I was absolutely shocked. I've never seen so many different hot dogs. I mean, you see the hot dogs here, you can have any kind of... It was absolutely shocking, and I realized that the West had taken over very rapidly. The free market system worked very well to the detriment of the health of the people of Lithuania. These are the kind of foods that I found there. I mean, it's shocking. Then even I found Monster drinks, Red Bull, M&Ms, Pringles. I mean, everything is there. And what happened next? Well, and then I learned that Lithuania has one of the highest death rates from cardiovascular disease. Probably 55 to 56% of what I understand of all the deaths are related to cardiovascular disease. In America, it's only 30%. And we thought we were bad off. And then I began to also realize that the gap, the lifespan gap between Spain and Lithuania is 9 years. Spanish people live 9 years longer. Why? Could it be related to the kind of the new invasion of Western foods? That we're adding pressures to the traditional meat-centered diet? And so I reminded myself, Japan, 1960, it was difficult to find diabetes. Within 40 years, the diabetic prevalence in Japan had increased from 1% to 15% of the population of a certain age group. So you have seen a 15-fold increase. Petros and I went to Arabia, and these are the pictures that we saw there. I mean, this is not what it was like. And we talked to some of these princes and to some of these people there, to the leaders, and they said, our kings used to be 75, 85, 90 years of age. They would live on dates and some nuts and some mutton. But now they're at 49 and 59 years of age in bypass surgery units. Today, Saudi Arabian women have one of the highest rates of obesity, probably the highest in the world, and diabetes is expected to be prevalent at 90% of the adult population when you add full diabetes and pre-diabetes. Well, we have our own story to tell in America, because we changed our diet dramatically in the 1970, 1975. That was the advent of the development of the fast food industry. Here you see the changes from 1960 till today. We used to have 1 in 20 women develop breast cancer. Now it's 1 in 7. Diabetes, we had a pretty stable diabetes prevalence rate till about 1980, and then after the dietary shift in America, we see a dramatic increase in diabetes, so that in the last 30 years, we have seen a diabetes 2 increase by 400%. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes 300 years to change the genetics in a society. This happened in 30 years. Diabetes is not likely to be seriously determined by genetics. Something happened in the environment. They must have put it into the water. What happened? And then you see what happened to the chairs? No, they did not increase, not very much, until 2000. You see, it takes about 10, 15, 20 years for a diet to take a hold of the population, and you just see the eruption and the evolution of these Western, we used to call them Western diseases, but now we call them global diseases, because the American lifestyle, the products of their lifestyle, have gone viral globally. And so this is then the situation in Lithuania. 56% of all the deaths are due to cardiovascular disease, in contrast to 30% in the US. 20% of your deaths are due to cancer. And so when we talk about heart disease, I just want to give you a quick feel of how we try to teach our participants what heart disease is. Oftentimes, they don't really understand what heart disease is. They think there's something wrong with the heart. No, what's wrong with the heart usually is that, as you know, the coronary arteries have become narrowed down. When they get narrowed down, we figure the first thing we can do is we can do a stent. We can open them up somehow, and then everything's going to be fine until it happens again. Oh, we can also do a bypass surgery. They run about $150,000. And we do about 400,000 of these procedures a year. And yet many physicians and many of our colleagues, and the population for sure, doesn't want to realize that about 40% of these bypass surgeries, 40% of these bypasses will no longer function within less than 2 years. We're talking about, these are procedures that can save lives. Sometimes they really do. A stent can be really life-saving when it's done within 24 hours within the heart attack when it occurs. But these procedures, over time, lose their efficacy. They lose their benefit, because no one takes the patient aside and says, after the bypass, from now on, no more smoking. They say, well, you might want to think about smoking. You have to talk like Brian and say, no more smoking in this kind of a case. You have to say, from now on, you got to get into an exercise program. From now on, you cannot have any more cholesterol-containing foods and foods that are high in trans fat and saturated fat. You got to make some changes. From now on, it's fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, maybe a few nuts and seeds, and that's it. Simple foods, foods that nature has designed, not foods that come out of profitable plants. Do you understand my play on words? Plants, factories, processed foods. You have potatoes that come that way in nature, but then they go through a plant and they come out as potato chips. And you say, well, they're still potatoes. I'm sorry. The potato has hardly any caloric value. I mean, you have a whole potato, it's about 100 calories. You have Pringles, one tube like this, it's 1,000 calories. And you can eat those in, how long does it take you to eat a tube of Pringles? You just inhale them, they're gone, right? 10 minutes, they're gone. And you just put on 1/3 of a pound of fat in 10 minutes. Because 1,000 calories is 1/3 of a pound of fat. So you have to then, if you need to do the bypass surgery, you have a responsibility, you have a social, ethical obligation to provide education, not just to the patient, but to the whole family. When we do lifestyle medicine, it has to be social unit placed. When you educate patients, don't talk to the patient only, talk to the family and significant others. Don't to talk just to that person or the group there, but try to reach a group of people that have similar problems and meet with them regularly, like once a week, maybe twice a week. Not just once a month. They've forgotten everything you told them last month. If you want to change the prevalence of these chronic diseases, you have to change the habits of people. And that's why we developed what we call a CHIP program, a complete health improvement program, where actually we have 35 hours of instruction and we meet with the people twice a week for 1.5 hours with their family members as a group of 15, 30, 500 people. And the magic is in the group. And it's cost effective only in the group. And the physician just comes along and is there to bless the program, but you have now health professionals that become the reference people. Oh yeah, the physician is involved. Of course, the physician needs to diagnose the illness and make the treatment plan available to the health professional. I call them the angels. When you have a master's degree in lifestyle medicine, you're an angel. You're standing at the very side of the physician, of the medical team, and you say, we can help you. We'll bring you into a group setting. We are kind, we are loving, we don't tell you what to do. I mean, I used to do that myself. I want you to stop smoking, I want you to get an exercise program, and I want you to lose weight. They come back 3 months later, did you do it? No. My response, you see, people don't do what you tell them to do. And that's what every one of my medical colleagues says. People don't do it. Yes, they do, but you have to first teach them why they should do it. And that's what they did so very successfully at this 10-day program down in Druskininkai. 2 lectures every day to understand. And then you have food demonstrations. How do you prepare food? Just telling a person, I want you to have a good breakfast every day to start the day. So you go to McDonald's, right? Is that the answer? No. How do I make a good breakfast? How do I get a whole grain cereal? Really? Yeah. And so these ladies there, they showed us every morning when we had breakfast, this is the breakfast. Oh, that's pretty good. How did you do this? How did you put that into a mixer? How did you actually... Yeah. You see, we have to teach people the basics of nutrition and food preparation all over again. How many of you agree with this? Yes, we do. Because if the food doesn't come in a box and you can shove it into a micro oven, you don't know what to do. You're going to starve. I mean, somebody said to me, if I lose my can opener, I'm going to starve to death. I think that's right. So we have to be very, very basic. And a good healthy meal should be simple. It should be inexpensive. We have done the research. If you move towards this kind of a lifestyle, you can reduce your food bill by 35 to 45%. So when we talk about heart disease, we're really talking about a concept of atherosclerosis, a narrowing and hardening of the arteries. Let me show you a quick video here to give you some idea of what we're talking about.
I first woke up, so to speak, when I was working on the anesthesia service, learning how to put people to sleep. And I was seeing my patients for the next day's surgery, for coronary artery bypass surgery, in order to bypass clogged arteries in their heart. Because it was late test, and when I took the blood to the laboratory and had it processed, I couldn't believe my eyes. Now, normally, this liquid layer floating on top of the blood clot is quite transparent. It's yellow, but quite clear. You can see right through it. The blood in this patient's tube, however, was anything but clear. The serum floating on his clot was thick and greasy white. It looked like glue. In fact, it stuck to the sides of the blood tube when I shook the tube. I went back to the patient. I said, "Mr. Phillips, did you eat before you came to the hospital tonight?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What did you have?" He said, "I had a cheeseburger and a milkshake." And when he said that, I realized that what I was looking at in his tube was all the fat in the beef burger, all the butter fat in the cheese, and the butter fat in the ice cream and in the milkshake. And all this fat had oozed out into his blood and actually turned his blood fatty. Well, 30, 40, 50 years of keeping your blood very fatty creates changes in the blood vessels that are very dangerous.
Over the years, with fatty material, then a blood clot can form, blocking the blood flow completely. If the artery leads to the heart, the lack of oxygen can cause heart muscle to die. That's a heart attack. If the clogged artery leads to the brain, the patient has a stroke.
The next morning, we took Mr. Phillips to the operating room, and I put him to sleep, and the surgeon opened up his chest. And from these arteries, he began pulling out yellow, greasy deposits of fatty material called atherosclerosis.
Do you want to see this again? What you just saw was a basic underlying pathology of most of our circulation-related chronic diseases. Let me give you some idea here. You're not only affecting with narrowing processes that I showed you that are progressive. From the time you're born and you are exposed to this atherogenic diet, you are not only causing the narrowing of the coronary arteries that are filling in with cholesterol and certain fats and calcium and cause a rigidification of the coronary arteries, but you also affect the arteries to the brain, the arteries to the ear, to the hearing, the arteries to the eyes, and so you have to worry about macular degeneration. You have to worry about hearing loss. You have to worry about memory function loss, cognitive function. They are all in part related. Alzheimer's is probably 1/3 related directly to atherosclerotic plaques and narrowing of these arteries, not providing sufficient oxygen to the brain area. Then you have the renal arteries. Again, kidney disease is directly, oftentimes related to a narrowing of the arteries. And then you have ED. What does ED mean? Erectile dysfunction. Now, if you're not quite sure what this English word, just talk to some of your friends later on. They'll explain it to you. It has something to do with impotence in men. And that has become now the canary in the coal mine. The canary was a little bird that was taken down underground by the miners because of poisonous gases that could be detected by the birds before it harmed the miner. And when they saw that bird beginning to gradually keel over, they made a beeline to where the oxygen was. And so impotence, commonly found in American men 45 and 50 years of age, has become the canary in the coal mine. It is not an absence of Viagra. It's a circulatory problem where the penile arteries are only about 1/10 the size of the coronary arteries, and they can very easily begin to get narrowed down. And when you have, or you rely on blood flow in a steady way at a strategic moment, and things just don't work out, things begin to change and everybody's embarrassed. Men always come to me after my lecture on atherosclerosis. They always stay behind, and I know exactly what they want to talk about. I said, tell me, what do I have to change to make things raise the flag again? I said, yeah, do something about anything that will open up the coronary arteries, will also open up these arteries, such as a very simple diet, an absence of smoking, get an exercise program. These are the kind of things, and they can work sometimes 6 to 12 months. So please take a look here. These are the risk factors. We are very familiar with them. The big ones are cholesterol, smoking, and high blood pressure, but then you also have to worry about diabetes, obesity, triglycerides, inactive lifestyle, stress. And these are the kind of factors that drive this disease. And what do we do with these risk factors? We treat them medically, right? The medicalization of behavioral risk factors. These are factors that are related to our lifestyle choices, and yet we commercially now treat them. Well, it's a commercialization, it's a medicalization that we do, and you shouldn't really be surprised when I tell you that in America, every third, well, I shouldn't say every third, yeah, it's a number three cause of death in America, prescription drugs. We could have handled these things very easily in just a few weeks. We can lower cholesterol numbers by 20-25% in 30 days without medication. We can normalize blood sugars with people on insulin for up to 10 years. 40% of these people are no longer on insulin within less than 30 days, and they have normal blood sugars. We can take 83% of patients with high blood pressure on medication. We can have them off medication in less than 30 days if they make some lifestyle changes, particularly how much salt we use in our diet. And so this is the way that we do medicine nowadays. I'd like you to team up with your partner there. Anyone, two of you. Talk together, talk to each other. Tell each other what you see here. What is wrong with that picture? Please, I'm going to give you 2 minutes and I'll ask a question from some of you. So be sure you talk about it. Please talk about it together, and I'll give you 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, I ask you what you see. Okay. 10 more minutes. 10 more minutes. Okay, the lady here. What did your partner tell you she thought is happening here? Tell us, loud and clear.
One opinion.
You have the same opinion? What was your opinion? Oh, yes. Do you see what's happening here? You have a team of people. They have one goal in life, and that is to keep the floor dry. They're passing out expensive color-coded umbrellas. They do everything they can to make everybody feel comfortable, and nobody fixes the problem. What do you need in this picture here? You need to have not a medical team, you need to have a plumber. But that's what we now begin to realize, and that's what we're planning to do now with the new health professional, the special angels. Trained on the master's level in lifestyle medicine, and hopefully we're upgrading this down the line to a doctoral degree so that we have a medical professional that will take care of the infectious diseases, that will diagnose the disease, that will take care of acute care. These physicians, these are people wonderfully educated, outstanding. We want to work with them, and we want to bring our angels then to help them to do the education, to do the motivation, to do the inspiration, and to work with the government, get support from them to have social policies that are supporting this kind of a thing, have maybe special taxation on certain products like they've done in certain countries. And then improve the health of the whole society, and emerge as a leading nation in the world that has pioneered lifestyle medicine on a nationwide scale. That's a dream of Petros. That's when he came to me, and that's a dream I share with some of my dear colleagues here that are now representing this movement in Africa, in Saudi Arabia, all over the world. And it's a great joy for me, professionally speaking, to see the emergence, especially after the arrows were flying very violently in 1980, around that time when I started this kind of a movement. But please also remember, this is the United States data. 1960, we would spend 5% on medical care. This year, we'll be spending 19, almost 20% of all of our earnings as a society on medical care. And today's generation of people will live a shorter life than my generation because of this tsunami of chronic diseases. And that's what Petros said to me. That's what the dean told me. The dean said, Hans, we cannot afford $150,000 surgeries for heart disease. We cannot afford these expensive high-tech approaches. We need to use a low-tech, educationally intensive approach to prevent and reverse these diseases. And I said, that's exactly right. And I'm committing myself to helping you to this end. We know, for instance, that probably 80% of all of our chronic diseases are clearly preventable, and that includes premature death. So the prevention is very clear, and the prevention will largely come from diet and lifestyle. Again, you see this risk arch, and what you notice here are that most of these risk factors that drive this disease called atherosclerosis, and the many clinical expressions of the disease, they're all diet-related. They're related to our lips. We get into a lot of trouble with our lips. Are you with me? High blood fats, triglycerides, lips, obesity, lips, diabetes, lips, smoking, I forgot this, lips, right? Cholesterol, lips, high blood pressure, lips. Let me tell you what my prescription is. My prescription is that the primacy of these diseases, the most preeminent role is being played by how we use our forks, our fingers, our forks, our hands, our forks. That's the number one factor that drives everything else. You cannot produce or reverse heart disease with diet, with exercise alone. You cannot. But you can reverse and prevent this disease with diet alone. You can, regardless of what people tell you. But it is not the wise way to do it that way. You want to round out your approach. So what I recommend to people, the 3 F's. F like in Frank. First one is forks. How do you use it? Number 2, fingers. How do you use your fingers? Do you smoke? Number 3, feet. Are you using your feet? Are you getting your 10,000 steps in? That's why I'm not standing behind the pulpit. I have to get those 10,000 steps in today, right? So, I'm trying to be a good example to you, right? Oh my goodness. So, then you have 3 more aspects, and these are the 3 S's. Sleep. You get those 7-8 hours of sleep? Are you prepared to turn that television off at 10 o'clock at night? Get the pre-midnight sleep, which is a higher quality than the rest of the night. Sleep. Number 2, stress. Second S, stress. Communication. And number 3, how about the aspect of doing things for the right reasons? Are you a taker or are you a giver? Are you a spiritually oriented person that wants to see other people happy? And when other people are successful, you rejoice with them? Not easy for most of us to do. when I talk about the S's, I think also about, are we really becoming a nicer person? Have I really helped society by giving them stronger hearts so they can do more damage, socially speaking? I was in a big convention in Taiwan not too long ago, and I asked the audience, there were men and women, I asked them, tell me, it's not just all about eating sprouts and drinking your 8 glasses of water and exercising. How about becoming a nicer person? Now, different people have different languages of love. My wife seems to enjoy the language, among others, of flowers. So I asked these people, I said, this is for you men only. You men, I want to talk to you personally. Tell me, when did you give flowers to your wife last time? I noticed some of these wives were doing. And one man spoke up and said, I think it must have been the wedding. And one man spoke up, no. I gave my wife flowers. You have Valentine's Day here? Yeah, I give my wife flowers on Valentine's Day, which is in February, right? February 14th. You see, I know. February 14th. No, I give my wife flowers on Valentine's Day. And she said, tell him what year. I mean, these are little things, but they are smoothing the road, doesn't it? The women loved me in that audience. But it's not about that. It's just an illustration that we need to also include those kind of things. So I want to take you quickly to Karelia to show you how powerful lifestyle medicine changes can be. Karelia is a small part of Finland. It's right next to the Russian border. And it was known as the Valleys of Beautiful Widows. Would you like to go there? Yeah. Valleys of Beautiful Widows. But behind this attractive slogan is the ominous truth that it had the highest heart disease death rate in the world. Finland, Karelia. These women had lost their husbands 45 years of age, 50 years of age. People would meet on the street. They were 40 years of age, 2 men. They'd say, hey, have you had your angina yet? Angina pain? Normal. So these women, they approached this man when he was much, much younger, who later became the chronic disease official for the World Health Organization in Geneva. And he said, I've read some studies, and it probably has to do with diet, smoking, alcohol, stress, and insufficient sleep. We need to do something about this. They did. What he did, he went to the small little villages in Karelia and trained the most prominent woman in that village. And he said, you are the Martha. And I want you to train all the other women. You come into a special training program, and then you become the multipliers of our concepts. They did this, and please note, this is now 25 years later. Cardiovascular disease has diminished by 68%. Heart disease death rates have gone 73%. That means the disease was almost knocked out. There's only 27% of the deaths there. Smoking, of course, also lung cancer dramatically reduced because you did something about smoking. And then people say, well, so you don't die from heart disease, so you die of something else, right? Well, wait a minute. Let's take a look at it. Men increased their life expectancy by almost 8 years in Karelia. Karelia is today one of the countries with the lowest heart disease death rates. The power of making some lifestyle changes. So women have gained an extra 6 pounds, and this is becoming it's probably going to be in the running someday for becoming another blue zone like what Loma Linda is. We also know that you can reverse heart disease by simply using a very simple diet. We have known this from Dr. Esselstyn. His book is available in Lithuania here. It's called Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And you see some of the angiographic evidence, the artery of a coronary artery here. You see the atherosclerotic plaque is building up quite a bit. There's angina affecting this kind of a heart muscle here. And here you see the same vessel 2.5 years later, totally restored, no medication, no surgery. The only thing they did, they changed what they put at the end of their fork. And he said, in one of the American Journal of Cardiology articles, he said, for the vast majority of patients, bypass surgery is not as effective as a very low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet. This became the film. How many of you have seen the film Forks Over Knives? An incredible film, isn't it? It features these two icons, Dr. Campbell and Dr. Esselstyn. I want to close now as I take, the chairman gave me an extra 10 minutes since we have a little bit of a discussion group differential there now. You began to start your journey towards a better way of looking at chronic disease in 2013 when you brought Dr. Campbell, the author of the famous China study book, to the area here, and then also Dr. Esselstyn. 2015, I had the very special privilege of being part of a hosting group that brought in some of your public health and medical and political leaders of Lithuania. They came to visit Harvard. They began to visit Cornell University. They came to Loma Linda University, and they visited our Lifestyle Medicine Institute there in Loma Linda. And we began to dream. You see some of the people here that were some of the prominent leaders. That we began to dream, we laid the plans, and we said we need to develop a new health professional. And this then led to the second annual meeting, and the vision was to create a new health professional in dealing with these lifestyle-related chronic diseases. How do we develop angels that stand by the side of the medical system and will help them and lead out in education, motivation, inspiration, in cahoots, and in collaboration with the governmental social policies. And here you have some of the leaders that you know very, very well. Here's some of our new friends that we made and found, and that I'm happy to see here, of course, and who were very generous to invite me to come back. These are some of the officials from Loma Linda University. And here are some of the people from Harvard University, Dr. Willett, that will probably address you sometime. And here's Dr. Campbell, who is now 84 years of age and still traveling all over the world with a mission to change and to round out and to create a better way to deal with chronic diseases. So, it's done, isn't it? We had the first graduates here 2 weeks ago. I was overjoyed. I said to Petros, I'm going to come earlier. Maybe if I have to, maybe I can come and give the graduation speech, because that would have been my greatest joy. But I had to be at the Mayo Clinic at the time, so I just couldn't do it. But my thoughts were with all of you here. And so let me just summarize some of the pertinent differences between the traditional medicine and the new kind of health care that we need to embrace in dealing with chronic disease. This is traditional medical care. It treats the individual risk factors medically. You give a medication for the cholesterol. This approach treats lifestyle that is caused behaviorally. So we educate you about how you can lower your cholesterol. The goal of medicine is disease management and symptom relief. We make you feel better. Yes, you have angina, we can help you. That's very valuable. But it's not enough. We have to go beyond this. And this is what we do then in lifestyle medicine. Our goal is to prevent, to arrest, and to reverse the disease. We want to cure the disease. And we like to stay with the patient to adhere to the new lifestyle. The treatment oftentimes here focuses on just the physical health. And the Health Commissioner for Food Safety and Health of the European Union made it very clear that health is more than just physical health. We have to do comprehensive health care, and that's what we do in lifestyle medicine. It has to be holistic and multidimensional. Also, in lifestyle medicine, the patient has become an active partner. In medicine, we just prescribe the medication, take it, and everything's going to be fine. And the patient goes home and believes it. Because the patient has been taught to believe that for every ill, there is a pill. And so many people have multiple circulation-related diseases that we talked about, from the top all the way down to the bottom. And so every physician, every specialist owns one organ in the body. One specialist owns the neurological things, one specialist owns the eyes, one specialist owns the ears, one specialist owns the heart, one owns the lung, one owns the sexual parts, one owns the legs. So everybody, and we forget to treat the patient. We're not organ specialists. We are called to be we are supposed to be calling on helping the person who happens to have a sick organ. That's a total difference. And so here again, with the lifestyle medicine approach, we actually expect patients to make large changes. In traditional medicine, we don't really want to put too much pressure on patients. I give you the pill and I see you again in 3 months. I don't want to offend you. I don't even want to tell you that you're overweight. We don't even many times in America put people on the scale to determine if they're overweight, because we might be losing a patient. There's some ethics that probably have to kick in here. And so I want you to really think about this, that when it comes to these chronic diseases, we are signing a contract with the patient. We're here for you. We expect you to work with us. We're standing by your side. We're encouraging you, but you are in charge, and we're doing it for the long haul. When you do this, then life takes on a new meaning, and the medication becomes only a necessary agent as a secondary or tertiary layer. The first line of defense is take a look at your lifestyle. Ladies and gentlemen, we have learned now more than ever that the body has an incredible drive to heal itself. But you have to put the right raw materials into the system. You cannot expect a Ferrari sports car to run very well and very long if you put diesel fuel into a high-octane engine. But that's what we have done. This is what's happening since 1975, when America changed their diet and spread around the world. Processed foods, processed foods, processed foods. Very delicious, very addictive. And many people don't know that many of these producers of these foods are actually, these companies are owned by the tobacco industry. They know exactly, they've done the brain research, they know exactly how much sugar it takes, how much salt it takes, how much fat it takes to have a pleasurable hit right there. So that when a rat is being asked to choose between heroin and sugar, the choice will be sugar. And we think that we have to begin to realign our thinking that maybe sugar and salt and fat, to the extent that we use them, no, they're not poisons. But to the extent that we use them, they become deleterious because they cause us to have this pleasurable experience. Have you ever thought about this? Why is it that I cannot just eat one M&M? Do you know M&Ms? Oh, you don't have M&Ms here? Oh, these are all very health-oriented people. Have you ever had Oreos? Oh, you do. Have you ever had chocolate here? Have you ever wondered why you cannot just take one piece of chocolate and then you put it away and the next day you have another little piece? Can you do this? No! Because an addictive process taking place right up there in the pleasure center. Have you ever wondered why you cannot just settle for one Pringle? You know, those beautifully shaped? And they crack at just the right pressure that you apply. Why don't you just settle for one? Can you? Are you weak-willed? No. We are subject to addictive processes that are inculcated into these products so as to create a bliss point, the right mouthfeel. And so my suggestion to you is, if you really want to be part of this movement, it begins with your shopping. When you go to the store, what are you going to put into your trolley? What are you putting into these carts? Because once you bring it home, you are a goner. Once you bring it home, you're going to eat it. So today, I consider this to be a special day of the fulfillment of the next step in the fulfillment of a dream, of seeing the emergence of a lifestyle medicine approach. A lifestyle medicine is totally evidence-based. It doesn't really mean it's alternative medicine. No, it's not really yoga. That can have its part, but it's not that's what it is. It's not complementary medicine. It's not integrative medicine. It's lifestyle medicine. There are clear boundaries. It has to be evidence-based for us to accept it. And so I'm delighted to be here with you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Hans. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. And how you already seen today, lifestyle medicine doesn't have any borders. And in terms of that, we do have very honored guest here from Nigeria. Please, big applause for Ife Monet, CEO of Association of Lifestyle Medicine in Nigeria, to share us their, starting points and what we achieved in lifestyle medicine in Nigeria. Just be patient for last 10-15 minutes. It is worth. Please, Ife Monet.
Thank you very much. I'm going to follow on from Hans, and I'm going to just walk around so that I can get my 10,000 steps today. But maybe it'll be 50 steps, maybe not 10,000. I want to say thank you very much to the country of Lithuania. Don't worry, my talk is not going to be more than 15 minutes because I know it's a hard task to be asked to close a conference. It says, conference closing. And I thought, who decided I should be the one to speak? Is it because you want me to say what I've learned? You want to be sure that I've gained from this trip all the way from Nigeria, Africa? Why have you asked me to do this? But so I came up with a very interesting way to close it. And I've summarized what I think, for those of you who have waited this long, you should take away. So, before I start the summary of what everyone has said, and I will tell you what I have started by thanking the in Lithuania, but I've been to several parts of the world. I've never been to Lithuania, and I partially live in England. I've never been to Lithuania, so that's a bit surprising. But here I am, even though it's my first visit, it's certainly not going to be my last, because I'm going to be back again and again and again, as long as you'll have me. I want to thank the Speaker and Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, the Minister of Health, Commissioner of Health, European Commission, the Dean of the School of Medicine at the Vilnius University, where we were yesterday, the Dean of Faculty of Public Health here in the Kaunas University, all my colleagues and new friends, and these ones I'm going to make a song and a dance about, because for several years I've been in the space of lifestyle medicine since 2003 in Abuja, Nigeria. I've been reading about Hans Deal. I've been reading about John Kelly, I've been reading about David Katz, I've been reading about all of them. And I've been thinking, when am I going to meet this great man who are thinking just the thing that the future of medicine is? Because the future of medicine is lifestyle medicine. It doesn't matter the specialty of medicine. I trained in England in medicine and then did my postgraduate in child health and pediatrics and then in family medicine. So I work every day as a family physician, or what the Americans would call in family practice. But 10 years ago, is it 10 years, 2003? No, it's more than 10 years. 15 years ago, I began to think about lifestyle medicine. But I didn't see the name lifestyle medicine anywhere. And I thought, but everything I thought about, what we eat, what we drink, whether we sleep properly or not, whether we have a good attitude to life, whether we are givers and not takers. It gives me so much joy to give to people. And each time I do that, I feel good. I'm thinking, and I don't fall ill. Do we sleep properly? Do we exercise? Do we move around? This must be the way forward for medicine, to keep people healthy and not to wait for them to get ill. So I kept researching and Googling until I fell upon the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and I saw all these great people. So it's a great pleasure to finally meet you. So I thank you all. I thank all my colleagues, John Kelly, Hans Diel, Stephen Herzog, Chad Malone, whose name sounds like a movie actor, Adrian Kennedy, Brenda Davis, Brian Clement, and finally, and of course the spouses of these people I've called, who are here with us. And finally, Petrus, Venus, and Professor Curtis, who are the reasons I'm actually here, and the entire organizing committee of this conference. I want to thank you all. John Kelly said a few things. He said to us that epigenetics has turned everything upside down. Who remembers that? Before now, you have diabetes type 2, and then, you grow old and your son or your daughter comes and they're pregnant and you say, what's your family history? Does your father or your mother have type 2? Yeah, oh, wow. You stand a great chance of having that as well. And so those patients go away thinking, oh, well, I have a colleague in dentistry. He's a consultant dentist, actually, who said to me several years ago, he said, no man in my family lives beyond the age of 60 because of heart attacks. They have MIs and they die. So he says to me, I'm just waiting. If I can even get to 60, I'll be very pleased because, so I think, hang on, how is that possible that you're just waiting to die at 60? He says, no, it's in the family. So, I'm not going to try to do anything. I'm just going to try and enjoy my life before I get to 60. This is fact. This is true. But we know, as John Kelly said to us, that epigenesis has turned everything upside down. Now we know that your DNA is not your destiny. You are not destined to die at 60 because everyone in your family died at 60. He said, food turns genes on or off depending on what food you've eaten. It will either turn it on or turn it off. Gene expression of any chronic illness will be turned on and off by the food we eat. And that's research-based. Therefore, in summary, your DNA is simply your raw material, and you make with it what you want to make with your behavior and your lifestyle choices. Hans Diel said we must use lifestyle medicine to turn off the switch on chronic diseases and move from allopathic medicine to lifestyle medicine. The CHIP program which he developed, it's an amazing thing which I have said now when I go back to Nigeria, we are going to use it at the Brookfield Center for Lifestyle Medicine. And I'm going to go all over the country to introduce the CHIP program while I go to sensitize people about what's going on. The magic is in the numbers with the CHIP program. And he reminded us about the feet, fork, and fingers. And of course about the 3 S's, which is sleep, stress, and social connectivity or connectedness. So these are the things that are relevant. Stephen Herzog said there was the absolute need to standardize lifestyle medicine certification all across the globe so that we can, move the fables and tales and move into serious scientific evidence-based discipline, which is very important for the survival of what we're doing. Chad Malone and Adrian Kennedy brought us the corporate wellness perspective in lifestyle medicine, and said that for all that we do as healthcare givers and lifestyle medicine professionals, that we must ensure that we go into the community and see that companies have happy, healthy, active, more productive workers, and that school children, really, they are hope for the future, and they are the ones that we must work on now, so that they grow up not having to face what we are facing and our parents are facing, and grandparents. And then Agnes Slapsinskate, I hope I called your name well, said, briefly, let's move more. Let's move more. And if we move more, she showed so much statistics to support the fact that if we do that, we are going to live healthier, happier, and longer. And we're going to be rid of joint pains and osteoporosis and osteoarthritis, and give us the research evidence. Brian Clement from Hippocrates Health Institute said, categorically, cancer is reversible. He stood here and said, I'm not shy to say that cancer is reversible. So that is a very bold statement. So these are the things my friends and colleagues said. And I promised you I won't be more than 15 minutes, and I'm right to say so. Finally, I stand here because God has made it possible. It's an amazing honor to be here, because I've been dreaming about lifestyle medicine for many years. And there is we are now at the baby steps of awakening the minds of people, especially the healthcare workforce, and also the public, about lifestyle medicine in Africa, starting from Nigeria. Before 2014, it was all in my head. In 2014, I boldly, though nervously, established the Brookfield Center for Lifestyle Medicine. And the information began to grow, and I saw that more people got interested. And last year, and of course I did a lot of conferences and public awareness stuff, and last year we started the Nigerian Society, the Lifestyle Medicine Practitioners Association of Nigeria, for which I'm the founding president. So here I am to learn, to adapt, to adopt, to meet a lot of people, and to hear how this is being established in other parts of the world, and to formally join the global movement of lifestyle medicine. Because I am licensed to practice, and I do practice in England, I am for some time in England and for some time in Nigeria. So in England, we have also last year started the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine. And I feel very frustrated as an NHS GP. And when this thing goes out, please cut this off. I don't want the GMC to see this. Because we are given 10 minutes to see our patients. How on earth can you do lifestyle medicine consultation in 10 minutes? So here's what I do. My consulting room is something like, from here, this is my consulting room, and the patient's waiting area is maybe double this distance. So just in order to get my steps in, I press the buzzer for them to come. I have to do that. But the option is not to press the buzzer, but just walk all that length, call them, and walk back. Every patient, about 40 patients a day. I think to myself, if I do that, I'll probably lose 2 minutes of the consultation time. And I'm never going to achieve very much. So I devised in my head, I'll press the buzzer, all right, then I'll get up and I'll meet the patient halfway. And then we will go back. Press the buzzer, I say, yes, I did. Then the conversation starts about lifestyle medicine. And we quickly say that, and when they begin, they get interested. Oh, wow. I say, you know what? Book another appointment so that we can talk about this. And just try and make it a double appointment. May not be lucky enough to get a double appointment, but I just slip it in. And that's how, even though in UK we haven't got approval to spend all that kind of time with our patients, but we're trying to creep it in, and we're trying to also establish group consultations to see if that will be the way out. And the Royal College of General Practitioners, for which I'm a fellow, is beginning to listen. I'm a regional director for the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine, representing and working in the South Central England when I'm there, and they are beginning to listen to us. So I have to say that I think I'm done with all that I have to do. Yes. What am I going back to do now? Yes. In Britain, we are very well established. Dr. Rob is our president, and he's a very dynamic man, and there is a lot of excitement in UK. So that they're coming on strong. But we are moving very slowly in Africa. So what I'm going back to do in Africa is this: continue to teach the health workforce, continue the scientific conferences, which we began last year. We had our first international conference last year in Abuja, Nigeria, and Professor Adrian Kennedy was one of our resource people, Professor Erica Frank from Canada, and Professor Duto from Florida State University, who is into, her whole life is on epigenetics and microbiome and genomes and all of that. So she said a lot about this on that event. Continue those scientific conferences. Work for certification in lifestyle medicine. And it's exciting. Stefan Herzog's talk about it when he talked about the absolute need for us to have a global standard and standardization of training and certification. So we're going to get our acts together so that we can get into this and get the IBLM working with us and getting the family physicians and the internists and whoever else wants to have the certification to have it. What that will mean, though, is that I need to go and sensitize doctors, sensitize nurses, physiotherapists, and so on, all the other people who want to take on the training and do the certification exam to get involved. And then we will hopefully build onto the master's program, and believe it or not, yes, a tall order, but we're looking at having a residency in lifestyle medicine. So we're going to go with the rest of the world. And is somebody saying, why is she saying all of that? Did we not just see that, West Africa is at the bottom of the countries with the slide that was shown, I think it was by Brian, about where we are with chronic diseases and that we really don't have that as a problem. That was a 2010 statistics. But if you go to the WHO's website, you will see that they have predicted, WHO, that Africa is going to be the greatest contributor to the rise in the prevalence of non-communicable lifestyle-related chronic diseases in the next few years. So rather than wait for this, and then of course, what everyone knows about Africa is communicable diseases. So HIV, malaria, Ebola, dengue fever, and all of that. These things are there. But can you imagine a situation where we are struggling with that, and now we are loaded with the other one? That's a double burden that we're carrying. And money, is it there for that? No, it isn't there for that. The average man pays out of pocket, doesn't have insurance. So how is that going to happen? So we are actually being not waiting to react to that situation, but we're actually going to go ahead and get ourselves ready to deal with it. We don't want a situation where every 3 patients that comes to the doctor comes because they need a stent, comes because they need a surgical intervention cardiothoracically. So we want to take the behavioral approach, a holistic, highly educational, intensive approach to help change the behavior of our people and get them ready to live happier, longer, and healthy lives as they go on. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope that was not too boring. I know it's the end of the day, and I wish you all an excellent day. We're going to go up to somewhere with a long name, and I'm looking forward to see the dolphins dance in the water. Thank you.
Thank you, Ife. She's like a Swiss watch, yeah? Well, I believe that's it. That's the end of 4th Annual Lifestyle Medicine Conference here in Kaunas for this year. That's a pleasure to have you here, our guests, our keynote speakers. We want to thank you a lot. We want to thank you all the volunteers who made this event possible. And however, John Kelly 3 days ago said, when we are talking about true lifestyle medicine, it's all about reversing and treating non-communicable diseases. Everything else is just fun. Let's think about it until next year. Thank you very much for all your attention.
stiko nėra. Čia Hanso stikas, ne.
Čia mano. Čia
Jis
mano.
kažką minėjo stiką.
Tai paklausim. O, atsiprašau, prašau.
Su to stiko grėjimas į galvą įrašytas.
Gerai.